One day, my husband asked me, "Hey, how much money do we have in that vault?" I chuckled and replied, probably around $500,000 in total now. The next day, when I got home, I found signed divorce papers on the living room table, and both my husband and the vault were gone. My name is Helen, and I'm a 58-year-old working housewife. Despite everything, I still work hard at my job. You see, saving money is a hobby of mine. When I was a child, my mother opened a savings account for me. She told me that depositing money in the bank would make the numbers in my passbook grow, and I found that very enjoyable. I started by depositing just $1 at a time and loved watching it grow. Each year, when my savings increased by a few cents in interest, it was a delightful surprise to my young self. Being fond of money and how it works, I became a financial planner and gave advice on asset management. One day, a college friend told me about an old childhood friend who was in serious trouble due to debt. They asked if I could give him some advice, so I decided to meet with them. This old friend was a handsome man with a refreshing smile. My friend explained that despite his looks, he loved gambling and was struggling to make ends meet. I thought I might have some good advice for him. His name was Mark. As I listened to his story, he admitted he loved gambling, just like his parents, and had even taken on their debt. He seemed quite worried, and I found his troubled expression rather endearing. Because my friend had asked, I gladly agreed to help him. Looking back now, perhaps I had a bit of a crush on him, but I never imagined that this would lead to a series of troublesome events. Anyway, I advised Mark to consolidate his debts and reduce his monthly payments so he could manage his life somehow. Not long after, Mark and I started dating. My friend opposed it, saying, I wouldn't recommend being with him, but we went ahead and got married. I thought that getting married would help us face Mark's debt together. My income was pretty good for my age group, so most of Mark's income went toward his debt. I made sure he cut ties with his parents to prevent the debt from increasing further, and I gave Mark a monthly allowance of $500. When Mark decided to cut ties, his mother yelled, "Ungrateful child! I wish I'd never given birth to you." It's only natural for a child to repay their parents' debts. His father also said, "Where's that thieving cat? I can't rest until I give her a piece of my mind. You don't belong to us." My husband, exhausted from having to deal with my in-laws' debts all this time, finally told them, "Enough is enough. I'm not your ATM. I'm trying my best here," and came back to me. He finally felt relieved to be free from my in-laws, who constantly brought up their debts. Soon after, we had a son. Our son Kevin is handsome, just like Mark. He's my pride and joy. However, Kevin seemed to pick up on his father's lack of discipline and indecisiveness. Just as our son noticed, Mark's carefree character didn't change. He continued borrowing money from predatory lenders, dealing with loan sharks, and tricking friends into lending him money to gamble away. We went through a lot, but I managed to keep Mark in line over the years. After 23 years, we finally got Mark's debt down to about $10,000. We were almost at full repayment when Mark received a call from his parents. "Please help us," his mother pleaded. "Your father has collapsed. We're at the hospital now. Can you come?" "What? Which hospital? What's his condition?" Mark asked in a panic. "Your father suddenly collapsed, and we had to call an ambulance." His mother sobbed. "Mom, pull yourself together. What hospital are you at?" Mark left work early and rushed to the hospital. He messaged me, "Helen, Dad collapsed. I'm at the hospital now. I'm sorry I broke our promise and went to see my parents. I'm really sorry to hear that your dad collapsed. How is he now?" I asked. Mark sighed. "He had a minor stroke. His life isn't in danger, but he needs to avoid overexerting himself. Both my parents are feeling pretty low. I want to stay with them for a while. Is that okay?" "Of course, honey. I replied. Go and comfort them. Should I come too? No, it's okay. You're busy with work, and they might treat you poorly again, Mark said. I gave Mark a little extra money for hospital visits. They probably couldn't pay for the hospital fees. Since then, Mark seemed to visit his parents often. Each time, he took $200 or $300 from me. I guessed my in-laws were struggling financially and were taking a bit from Mark. It amounted to around $1,000 to $2,000 a month, but I let it slide for now. A year has passed since my father-in-law collapsed. Both my in-laws have aged, and I guess they wanted someone to lean on. My hobby, as always, is saving money. One day, I took out my bank book from the vault with a grin. Mark, who usually wasn't interested in me, stared at me and asked, "Hey, how much money do we have in that bank account you always look at so happily?" "It's about $500,000 now," I answered casually. But the next morning, I found a filled-out divorce form left in the living room, and both Mark and the safe were gone. As I was having breakfast, I couldn't help but smile. I knew Mark had been eyeing the money in the vault. Moreover, he had planned to take the entire vault. He's really not smart, but imagining him carrying the whole thing almost made me burst out laughing. We have a black cat named Luna, and we've installed a pet camera to watch her. Luna's adorable antics are the highlights of my day. I watch the camera during my lunch breaks, no matter when I look. My child is just adorable. One day, as I switched on the camera, there they were in our living room on a weekday, my in-laws and my husband, Mark. They were having an unbelievable conversation. "Oh, you're living in such a nice house, Mark. Having a good salary makes your mother so proud," my mother-in-law said, flattering my husband. "Indeed, I am proud," Mark's father added. "You know, I make a pretty decent salary myself, but Helen takes all of it, so I only get an allowance of $500 a month," Mark said. "Oh, you poor thing. You've been working so hard. Your mother understands," they consoled him. "I can't believe she takes all your salary and gives you only $500 a month. That's outrageous. You should be getting more. Why are you obeying such a tyrant like Helen? You could be living much better on your own. You're our pride, Mark. You could have saved hundreds of thousands by now, but she's just exploiting you. You poor thing." My mother-in-law began to sob. "Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. You guys are right," Mark agreed. "What is he talking about?" He seemed to have completely forgotten that I've been working hard to pay off his debt. I wondered what was going on inside their heads. In the past, Mark had been burdened with debt from his parents and had to give them cash every month, making it difficult for him to get by. Now, she has a bank book with tons of savings stashed away. "It's not fair that I only get $500, Mark complained. The moment he said that, my in-laws' eyes lit up. They exchanged glances. "So how much is in the bank book?" They leaned in eagerly, awaiting his answer. Last I heard, I think it was around $400K or $500,000, Mark said. "Mark, isn't that money rightfully yours?" they asked. "It might not match the effort you've put in, but isn't it money you should be receiving?" "Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm starting to think the same thing," Mark conceded. Despite his good looks, Mark is indecisive and easily influenced by others. I used to find this indecisiveness endearing and devoted myself to him wholeheartedly. We've managed to reduce his nearly $200,000 debt down to $10,000, yet it looks like he's being manipulated by his parents again, and they're about to touch my precious savings. Seeing this scene was so pathetic. I was at my desk at work, tears streaming down my face as I held my phone. I've been putting aside my living expenses for Mart, using his income mostly to pay off the debt. On top of that, I was providing him with an allowance of $500 out of my own pocket. Despite explaining this to Mark, it seems he's completely forgotten. What have these past 23 years been for? I felt so sad and pitiful. My heart ached as if I was drowning in my own tears. I felt like I was disappearing, on the verge of breaking, but I made sure to record the conversation and sent the data to my son. That day, I left work early due to sickness. I went to my usual bar and drank heavily, spilling out everything to the bartender. In such a state, the bartender comforted me gently. He casually said, "Why do you grieve for such a person? You did nothing wrong. There's no need to live for them. Live for yourself." At that moment, all my intoxication and love for my husband faded. "Thank you, sir. Next time, we'll share a pleasant dream." I went back home after saying that to the bartender. Entering my study, I began to think, how would I steal the bank book inside that vault? I couldn't even begin to imagine, but I needed to devise a plan. I will show them hell. They shouldn't underestimate me. I concentrated harder than usual. Gathering evidence was the first step. From then on, I frequently checked the pet camera every day. Then the ugly truths began to surface. My husband was bringing home a young woman during his supposed work hours. It seemed like he was bringing her over about 3 times a week. I couldn't believe I had to witness my husband's infidelity when all I wanted was to watch our cat, Luna. Luna also seemed to be scared and wouldn't show up. They ruined my precious relaxation time. No more than that. They betrayed me, which I can't forgive. One day, I'll punish them severely. One day, while I was working, I activated the pet camera. This time, it wasn't the woman my husband was having an affair with, but my in-laws were at our house again. "So, is everything arranged to take that bank book from Helen?" they said with an unpleasant grin. "You're smart. You must have thought of something, right?" "Yeah, I thought about it. I'm thinking of taking the entire vault. It'll be easy." "Hey, that vault is quite heavy. Are you sure you can do it?" "I'll be fine. I'll load it on a cart. Help me out, Dad." "All right. I'll assist you anytime." The safe weighed about 120 pounds, as I suspected. My husband Mark was good-looking but not very smart. I pledged in my heart once again to drag these people down to the depths of hell. "If we have that money from the bank book, we can go to the casino as a family. We can live as a family of 3 again." "That's right. Let's live happily with the money from that bank book. Right, Mark?" "Yeah, but I do feel a little bad about Helen. She was saving up so happily." "You can't be so weak-willed. We're doing this for your happiness, remember?" "Right. I'll be happy. Besides, you found a new wife, haven't you?" "Quickly divorce that woman. I have to divorce for her sake as well. I'll leave the divorce papers here." "That's right. We're waiting for the money from that bank book and the new wife." "So, I'm going to be divorced. Well, I guess that makes sense." I found myself strangely accepting. But just how down bad are these people for some money? I was sipping coffee at my office desk, recording the scene on my phone screen. I wasn't even upset or sad anymore. If they had such intentions, so did I. I was going to show them all hell. I was fired up, and then the day finally came. "Hey, how much money is in that passbook in the vault? You always seem so happy when you're looking at it." "Right now, there's about $500,000 in there." The next day, when I got home, there was a signed divorce paper in the living room, and both my husband and the vault were gone. I had a smirk on my face while having breakfast. I acted quickly afterward. I immediately filed the divorce papers and contacted my son. "Kevin, your father finally stole the vault. I can't believe he managed to carry it. It's so heavy." "Mom, I think it's about time you end things with Dad. By the way, did he take everything in the vault too?" "Actually, I moved all the money to online banking. The passbook is essentially worthless now. The most valuable thing might have been the safe itself since it was so heavy." Oh, by the way, I've already filed the divorce papers. Now, I'm thinking about filing a police report. What do you think? You should file a police report, and it would be best to hire a lawyer. Oh, right, a lawyer. I already had a private investigator on it but hadn't thought about a lawyer. Thanks. I'm cutting ties with that too. Kevin seemed exasperated. As Kevin suggested, I reached out to a lawyer through my private investigative contact. I handed over the recording from my pet camera to the police and the lawyer and waited. After a while, I received a call from my ex-husband. He sounded quite frantic. What the hell? The passbook is empty. What happened to the $500,000? You tricked me. That was my money. Where is it? Tell me now, or I'm going back to the house and abandoning your cat. Luna. You just committed theft and now you're threatening me. From now on, communicate through my lawyer, I said and blocked his number. I reported the incident to the police and sent the recording to my lawyer. Oh, what a relief. This is what I wanted to do. Karma is a real pain. I got a call from the police shortly after. We have caught the thief. However, the vault was damaged. It appears he forced it open. The things inside it were burned. My ex-husband and his parents learned that the passbook balance was zero. And apparently, they set the things inside the vault on fire. Even though it was his first offense, my ex-husband spent a few days in police custody. His parents were released with a stern warning. My ex-husband broke into the house he used to live in after he was released. Hey, open up! I've come back. I'm sorry. It was just a small prank. Let me in. Let's talk. You haven't filed the divorce papers yet, have we? We're still married, right? Don't make a scene in front of the house. This is no longer your house. I've already filed the divorce papers. We are strangers now. Leave now, or I'll call the police. You jerk. This is my house. Open up. Open up. I called the police when he started causing a scene. 10 minutes later, he was taken away by the police again. I then called my lawyer, explained what happened, and had him start the process of getting a restraining order. Afterward, I asked my lawyer to sue for emotional distress due to infidelity. The lawyer said we might not get much money from his broke family, but none of that really matters. I'm definitely going to demand alimony. It seems the reason he broke into our house was because he was discarded by his mistress and apparently wanted to get back with me. His mistress promptly transferred $10,000 in alimony and seemed to have fled. It seems they split after the vault incident. When the money runs out, so does the love. I'm sure he was enticed by my $500,000. My underpaid ex-husband, who still has $10,000 in debt, and his gambling-addicted parents seem to be struggling with daily life. He appeared to be living in an old single-room apartment without a bath, constantly quarreling among the three of them. This information came from my lawyer. My ex-husband pleaded, I can't afford to pay the alimony. Please reduce the amount. And my ex-husband, who got involved with the police, was on the verge of retirement but apparently got fired from his company. The elderly parents-in-law have managed to find jobs in cleaning and seem to be barely making ends meet. My ex-husband is now working 3 part-time jobs. But these 3 are gambling addicts, so no matter how much money they have, it disappears. There's no helping them. I had my lawyer tell them, no reduction. Stay away from her. If you're really sorry, show it with money. If he had stayed with me, he had planned to end the remaining $10,000 debt by the time he retired, but he fell for the sweet talk of his gambling-addicted parents-in-law at the end. How foolish. This $500,000 is an accumulation of my savings that I have started building from a very young age. I find it enjoyable to save small change. There's just something fun about updating the bank book. So, I think I'll start a new bank book. Right now, I'm living a relaxed life with my black cat, Luna. My son visits occasionally and tells me about his girlfriend. This time, I'm going to spend time for myself. I need to buy a new vault. One that's so big that a person can't carry it. Right, Luna? I am the happiest I've ever been.
The click of my heels echoed through the empty boardroom as I paced, rehearsing my presentation one last time. In just 30 minutes, I'd be pitching my vision for the company's future to the board of directors. My mother's company. Soon to be my company. I smoothed my blazer, took a deep breath, and glanced at my reflection in the window. "You've got this, Grace," I whispered to myself. The door swung open, startling me. My mother, Victoria, strode in, her presence commanding as always. "Grace, darling, are you ready?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "As ready as I'll ever be." She approached, her eyes scanning me critically. "Remember, these men have known you since you were in pigtails. You need to show them you're not that little girl anymore." "I know, Mom. I've prepared for this my entire life." Victoria's lips tightened. "This isn't just about preparation, it's about presence. Confidence. Show any weakness and they'll eat you alive." I bristled at her words but kept my composure. "I won't let you down. See that you don't." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Grace, don't forget the charity gala tonight. It's crucial for networking." I suppressed a groan. "Of course, Mom. I'll be there." As the door closed behind her, I let out a long breath. The weight of expectations pressed down on me, threatening to crush my resolve. But I couldn't falter. Not now. The presentation went better than I'd hoped. I could see the impressed looks on the board members' faces as I outlined my plans for expanding into sustainable energy markets. Even my mother's stoic expression softened slightly. As we filed out of the boardroom, congratulations ringing in my ears, my assistant, Sarah, approached. "Miss Thompson, there's a call for you. It's about the gala tonight." I frowned. "Can it wait? I need to prep for the event." Sarah hesitated. "It's the event planner. There's been a mix-up with the catering." I closed my eyes, counting to 10. "Fine. I'll take it in my office." 20 minutes later, I hung up the phone, my head throbbing. The caterer had double-booked, leaving us without food for 500 guests. I'd managed to find a last-minute replacement, but at twice the cost. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, massaging my temples. To my surprise, it was Jack, one of the younger board members. "Grace, I just wanted to say your presentation was impressive. You've clearly put a lot of thought into the company's future." I smiled, genuinely this time. "Thank you, Jack. That means a lot." He leaned against the doorframe, his expression turning serious. "Listen, I know Victoria can be intense, but don't let her push you too hard. You're doing great." I blinked, caught off guard by his kindness. "I appreciate that, really." As Jack left, I felt a small weight lift from my shoulders. Maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. The gala was in full swing when I arrived, fashionably late due to the catering crisis. I plastered on my best smile and dove into the crowd, shaking hands and making small talk. An hour in, I found myself at the bar, desperately in need of a breather. As I waited for my drink, a deep voice beside me said, "You look like you could use a real conversation." I turned to see a handsome man with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, laughing. He grinned. "Only to a fellow sufferer of small talk fatigue. I'm Dylan." "Grace," I replied, shaking his offered hand. "So, Dylan, what brings you to this thrilling event?" His eyes twinkled with mischief. "Oh, you know, the usual. Networking, schmoozing, pretending to care about golf handicaps." I couldn't help but laugh. For the first time that night, I felt myself relax. "Well, in that case, want to join forces? We could save each other from boring conversations." Dylan's smile widened. "I thought you'd never ask." As we clinked glasses, I felt a spark of excitement. Maybe this night wouldn't be a total disaster after all. Little did I know, that moment would change everything. I couldn't believe how quickly 6 months had flown by. Dylan had become a constant in my life, a whirlwind of charm and excitement that swept me off my feet. But as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress for our dinner date, a nagging doubt crept into my mind. "You're being ridiculous," I muttered to my reflection. "He's perfect." The doorbell rang, and I hurried to answer it. Dylan stood there, looking dashing in a tailored suit, a bouquet of roses in his hand. "For the most beautiful woman in the world," he said, handing me the flowers. I felt my cheeks flush. "You're too much, you know that?" He grinned. "Never too much for you, Grace." At the restaurant, a cozy Italian place we discovered on our third date, Dylan seemed distracted. He kept fidgeting with his napkin, his eyes darting around the room. "Is everything okay?" I asked, reaching for his hand across the table. He took a deep breath. "Grace, there's something I need to ask you." My heart skipped a beat. Was this it? Was he going to? Dylan slid out of his chair and dropped to one knee beside me. The entire restaurant fell silent. "Grace Thompson, you are the most incredible woman I've ever met. You're brilliant, driven, and kind. I can't imagine spending another day without you by my side." He pulled out a velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" I gasped, tears welling in my eyes. Dylan, yes, of course I'll marry you." The restaurant erupted in applause as Dylan slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into a passionate kiss. Later that night, as we celebrated with champagne at my apartment, reality began to set in. "Have you told your mother yet?" Dylan asked, his arm draped around my shoulders. I winced. "Not yet. I should probably do that soon, huh?" He squeezed my hand. "Want me there for moral support?" I shook my head. "I appreciate it, but I think this is something I need to do alone." The next morning, I steeled myself as I walked into my mother's office. Victoria looked up from her computer, her eyebrow arching at my unscheduled visit. "Grace, what's going on?" I took a deep breath. "Mom, I have some news. Dylan proposed last night, and I said yes." Victoria's face remained impassive. "I see. And you're sure about this?" I felt a flare of irritation. "Yes, Mom, I'm sure." She leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You've only known him for 6 months, Grace. Don't you think this is a bit hasty?" "I love him, Mom. He supports me in my career. Isn't that what you've always wanted for me?" Victoria sighed. "I want you to be happy, darling, but I also want you to be careful." "Have you discussed a prenup?" I felt my cheeks burn. "Mom, we're not even thinking about that right now." "Well, you should be," she said firmly. "You have a lot to protect, Grace. The company, your future." I stood up abruptly. "I can't believe you're making this about business. Can't you just be happy for me?" As I stormed out of her office, I heard her call after me. "Grace, wait!" But I didn't stop. I was too angry, too hurt by her lack of enthusiasm. That evening, as I recounted the conversation to Dylan, he listened sympathetically. "She's just looking out for you, babe," he said, rubbing my back. "But hey, if it makes you feel better, I'd be happy to sign a prenup. I'm not marrying you for your money." I looked up at him, feeling a rush of love. "You'd do that?" He kissed my forehead. "Of course, I'd do anything for you, Grace." As I snuggled into his embrace, I felt my doubts melt away. This was right. We were right. But a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a warning. Was I moving too fast? Was I letting my heart overrule my head? I pushed the thoughts aside. This was my happily ever after, and nothing was going to ruin it, not even my mother's disapproval. Little did I know, the real challenges were yet to come. The honeymoon glow faded faster than I ever imagined possible. 6 months into our marriage, I found myself staring at Dylan across our kitchen island, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. "What do you mean you quit your job?" I asked, my voice barely of a whisper. Dylan shrugged, taking a sip of his morning coffee. "I've been thinking about it for a while, babe. That place was sucking the life out of me. I need to find my true passion." I felt my jaw clench. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" He flashed me that charming smile that used to make my heart flutter. Now it just made my stomach churn. "I thought I'd take some time to explore my options. Maybe do some traveling, take a few classes, find myself." "Find yourself?" I echoed, incredulity creeping into my tone. "Dylan, we just bought this house. We have bills to pay." He waved his hand dismissively. "We'll be fine. You make more than enough to cover everything. Plus, think of how much happier I'll be." "Isn't that what matters?" I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest. What matters is that we're supposed to be partners. We made plans together. How am I supposed to focus on my career when I'm worried about supporting us both? Dylan's expression darkened. "So that's what this is about? Your precious career? I thought you married me, not your job." "That's not fair," I shot back. "You knew how important my work was to me. You said you supported that." He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Yeah, well, maybe I'm tired of always coming second to your ambition." As he stormed out of the kitchen, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Over the next few weeks, Dylan's finding himself consisted mainly of sleeping late, binge-watching TV shows, and going out with his friends. Meanwhile, I was working longer hours than ever, trying to keep up with our expenses. One evening, I came home to find Dylan sprawled on the couch, empty beer bottles littering the coffee table. "Hey, babe," he slurred, barely looking up from his phone. "How was work?" I dropped my bag on the floor, too exhausted to even hang it up. "Exhausting. Did you even leave the house today?" He shrugged. "Didn't feel like it." "Oh, hey, I ordered some new golf clubs. Hope you don't mind?" I felt something snap inside me. "Actually, I do mind. Dylan, we can't afford for you to keep spending money like this. We need to talk about our finances." He sat up, his eyes narrowing. "What's there to talk about? You make the money, I spend it. Isn't that how this works?" "No, that's not how this works," I exploded. "We're supposed to be a team, but lately I feel like I'm carrying everything while you just coast." Dylan stood up, swaying slightly. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was such a burden to you. Maybe you should have just married your company instead." "Maybe I should have," I retorted, instantly regretting the words. His face contorted with anger. "Well, if that's how you feel, maybe I should just leave." "Maybe you should," I whispered, my voice trembling. We stood there, staring at each other, the weight of our words hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Dylan grabbed his keys and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. How had we gotten here? How had the man I thought was my soulmate turned into this stranger? As tears streamed down my face, I reached for my phone. I needed to talk to someone, anyone who might understand. My finger hovered over my mother's number, but I couldn't bring myself to call her. She'd only say, "I told you so." Instead, I dialed Olivia's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Grace, what's wrong?" Her concerned voice came through the speaker. I took a shaky breath. "Olivia, I think my marriage is falling apart." Little did I know, that phone call would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. I sat across from Olivia at our favorite cafe, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of rapidly cooling coffee. The past few weeks had been a blur of arguments, silent treatments, and sleepless nights. "I just don't know what to do anymore," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's like Dylan's become a completely different person." Olivia reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Have you considered? Maybe it's time to end things." I flinched at her words. "Divorce? I don't know if I'm ready for that." She leaned in, her eyes filled with concern. "Grace, you can't keep living like this. You're miserable. And from what you've told me, Dylan doesn't seem interested in changing." I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "But what if I'm giving up too soon? What if there's still a chance to fix things?" Olivia sighed. "Look, I know this is hard to hear, but sometimes love isn't enough. You deserve someone who supports your dreams, not someone who drags you down." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Deep down, I knew she was right. But the thought of ending my marriage, of admitting defeat, terrified me. "Even if I wanted to divorce him," I said, my voice shaking, "I don't know if I could afford it. Dylan's been spending money like water. Our savings are practically gone." Olivia's eyes widened. "Grace, that's financial abuse. You need to protect yourself. Talk to a lawyer, see what your options are." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. "You're right. I need to at least know where I stand legally." As I left the cafe, Olivia's advice echoing in my mind, I felt a newfound determination. It was time to take control of my life again. The next day, I met with a divorce attorney. As she laid out my options, I felt my stomach twist into knots. "Based on your income and the length of your marriage," the lawyer explained, "Dylan could be entitled to a significant amount of alimony." I felt the blood drain from my face. "How significant are we talking?" She named a figure that made me feel lightheaded. "Of course, this is just an estimate. We'd need to negotiate with Dylan's attorney to reach a final settlement." I left the office in a daze, my mind reeling. How had I let things get so out of hand? When I got home, I found Dylan lounging on the couch, beer in hand. The sight of him, so carefree while I was falling apart, ignited something in me. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He looked up, annoyance flashing across his face. "About what?" I took a deep breath. "About divorce." Dylan sat up abruptly, his eyes narrowing. Divorce? Are you serious? Yes, I replied, surprised by my own certainty. This isn't working, Dylan. We both know it. He stood up, his face flushing with anger. So that's it? You're just giving up on us? I'm not the one who gave up, I shot back. You checked out of this marriage months ago. Dylan's expression hardened. Fine, if that's what you want, but don't think I'm going to walk away empty-handed. I gave up my career for you, remember? I felt a chill run down my spine at his words. What are you saying? He smirked, a cruel edge to his smile that I'd never seen before. I'm saying, if you want out of this marriage, it's going to cost you. Big time. As he stormed out of the room, I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. I'd known divorce would be difficult, but I never imagined Dylan would be so vindictive. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. How did it go with the lawyer? Want to talk? I stared at the message, a sudden wave of exhaustion washing over me. I needed a friend now more than ever. But as I typed out a reply, a nagging doubt crept into my mind. Was I doing the right thing? And more importantly, how far was Dylan willing to go to get what he wanted? Little did I know, the answer to that question would shake the very foundation of my world. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. Bleary-eyed, I fumbled for it on the nightstand, my heart racing when I saw it was my mother's assistant calling. Grace? It's Sarah. You need to come to the hospital right away. Your mother's had a heart attack. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I threw on clothes, my mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. As I raced to the hospital, I realized I hadn't even told Dylan where I was going. Not that he'd care, I thought bitterly. The hospital corridors were a maze of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. I found my mother's room, my breath catching in my throat at the sight of her. Victoria, always so strong and imposing, looked small and fragile in the hospital bed. Mom? I whispered, approaching cautiously. Her eyes fluttered open. Grace, she said, her voice weak but still commanding. We need to talk about the company. I shook my head, fighting back tears. That can wait. You need to focus on getting better. Victoria's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. No, it can't wait. I need to know the business will be taken care of if something happens to me. Mom, please, listen to me, she insisted. You're ready, Grace. You've been ready for years. I'm officially handing over control of the company to you, effective immediately. I felt the weight of her words settle on my shoulders like a lead blanket. But what about the board? They've always seen me as your little girl. A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. They'll learn. You're stronger than you know, Grace. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not the board, not me, and certainly not that husband of yours. I flinched at the mention of Dylan. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Dylan and I were getting divorced. To my surprise, Victoria's expression softened. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I know how much you wanted this marriage to work. Tears spilled down my cheeks. He's demanding a ridiculous amount in alimony. I don't know what to do. My mother's eyes hardened. You fight. You're a Thompson. We don't roll over for anyone. As I left the hospital that evening, my head was spinning. I was now the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. My mother was seriously ill, and my soon-to-be ex-husband was trying to bleed me dry. It felt like too much to bear. When I got home, I found Dylan waiting for me, a smug smile on his face. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all day. My mother's in the hospital, I snapped. Not that you care. His smile faltered for a moment before returning, even wider. Actually, I do care, because this changes things, doesn't it? With your mom out of commission, you're taking over the company, which means your income is about to skyrocket. I felt a chill run down my spine. How did you know about that? Dylan shrugged. I have my sources. The point is, our divorce settlement just got a lot more interesting. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I was done being manipulated, done being taken advantage of. You want my money so badly? Fine, but you're going to have to fight me for every penny. His eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? No, I said, my voice steady. It's a promise. As Dylan stormed out, slamming the door behind him, a plan began to form in my mind. If he wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. I picked up my phone, dialing my lawyer's number. It's Grace Thompson, I said when she answered. I need your help with something. How do we go about hiding assets in a divorce? There was a pause on the other end. Grace, that's a dangerous game, Are you sure you want to go down this road? I took a deep breath, thinking of my mother in the hospital, of Dylan's smug face, of everything I'd worked so hard for. Yes, I said firmly. I'm sure. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of determination and fear. I was about to enter uncharted territory, risking everything I'd built. But I was done being a victim. It was time to take control of my life, no matter the cost. Little did I know, the decision I'd just made would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The boardroom fell silent as I finished my presentation. I could feel the weight of every eye on me, scrutinizing, judging. I'd just proposed a radical restructuring of the company, one that would significantly reduce our short-term profits but position us for long-term growth. Thank you, Miss Thompson, Mr. Hawthorne, the head of the board, said slowly. That was unexpected. I forced a smile, my heart pounding. Change often is, Mr. Hawthorne, but it's necessary if we want to stay competitive. As the board members filed out, whispering among themselves, I caught snippets of their conversations. Too risky, one muttered. She's in over her head, another said. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting back a wave of nausea. This was my chance to prove myself, to show that I was more than just Victoria Thompson's daughter. And I was blowing it. My phone buzzed insistently. Dylan. Again. I'd been dodging his calls for weeks, ever since I'd started implementing my plan. With a sigh, I answered, What is it, Dylan? His voice was sharp, angry. What the hell are you playing at, Grace? I just got the latest financial reports. The company's profits are tanking. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. It's a temporary setback. We're restructuring. Bullshit, he spat. You're trying to screw me over in the divorce. Well, it won't work. I'm entitled to half of everything, including future earnings. We'll see about that, I said coolly, ending the call before he could respond. As I gathered my things, my assistant Sarah poked her head in. Miss Thompson? There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. I frowned. I don't have any more appointments today. She says she's an old friend, Olivia. My blood ran cold. Olivia. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Not since I'd started suspecting her true motives. Send her in, I said, steeling myself. Olivia swept into the room, all designer clothes and perfect makeup, but there was something off about her smile, a nervousness in her eyes. Grace, darling, she cooed. We need to talk. I crossed my arms. About what? She perched on the edge of my desk, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I know what you're doing, with the company, with Dylan. It's clever, really, but dangerous. I felt my pulse quicken. I don't know what you're talking about. Olivia's smile turned predatory. Oh, I think you do. You're tanking the company's profits to reduce Dylan's divorce settlement. But what you don't know is that Dylan's been recording your conversations. He has proof of your plan. The room seemed to spin. You're lying, I whispered. She shook her head. I wish I were, but don't worry, I'm here to help. For a price, of course. Rage bubbled up inside me. Help? Like you helped me before? By sleeping with my husband and manipulating me into divorce? Olivia's eyes widened in shock. How did you? Get out, I snarled. Now. As the door slammed behind her, I sank into my chair, my mind reeling. Dylan had evidence. If he went public, I'd lose everything. The company, my reputation, my freedom. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dylan. Meet me at the house in an hour. We need to talk. I stared at the message. I was feeling trapped. If I went, I'd be walking into a trap. If I didn't, he'd probably go straight to the authorities. With shaking hands, I dialed my lawyer's number. It's Grace, I said when she answered. I need your help. Things have escalated. As I explained the situation, I could hear the gravity in my lawyer's voice. Grace, this is serious. We're talking potential fraud charges. You need to be very careful about your next move. I ended the call, feeling more alone than ever. My mother was still in the hospital, the board was losing faith in me, and now this. It felt like my entire world was crumbling around me. But as I stood up, smoothing my skirt and squaring my shoulders, I felt a spark of determination. I'd come too far to give up now. Whatever Dylan had planned, whatever he thought he knew, I had to face it head on. With a deep breath, I grabbed my keys. It was time to confront Dylan, and with him, the consequences of every choice I'd made. As I walked out of my office, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. For better or worse, the next few hours would determine the course of the rest of my life. The moment I stepped into our old house, I knew something was wrong. The air felt thick with tension. and Dylan's smug sent chills down my spine. "Well, well," he drawled, lounging on the couch we'd picked out together. "If it isn't the brilliant businesswoman herself." I steeled myself, refusing to show weakness. "What do you want, Dylan?" He stood, circling me like a predator. "Oh, I think you know. I want what's rightfully mine." "We've been through this," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The divorce settlement was a joke," he spat, "based on lies. Your lies, Grace." My heart raced. He couldn't know. Could he? I forced a laugh. "What are you talking about?" Dylan's eyes glinted dangerously. "Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. I know all about your little scheme. Tanking the company's profits to reduce my settlement? Clever, but illegal." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You have no proof." "Don't I?" He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. My own voice filled the room, discussing the plan with my lawyer. I felt my knees go weak. "How did you get this?" Dylan finished, smirking. "Let's just say I had some help. From a mutual friend." As if on cue, Olivia stepped out from the shadows of the hallway. My stomach churned at the sight of her, standing there next to Dylan, a triumphant smile on her face. "You?" I whispered, the pieces finally falling into place. "You've been working together all along." Olivia shrugged, not even bothering to deny it. "Sorry, darling, it's just business." Rage bubbled up inside me. "Business? You were my friend. I trusted you." "And that was your mistake," Dylan cut in. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer half of your company's shares to me, plus a very generous alimony package. Otherwise, this recording goes straight to the police and the board of directors." I felt cornered, trapped. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed, was about to be ripped away. But as I looked at their smug faces, something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Dylan's smile faltered. "What did you say?" "I said no," I repeated, standing taller. "Go ahead. Release the recording. I'll face the consequences of my actions, but I won't let you blackmail me." Dylan's face contorted with fury. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You stupid bitch. Do you have any idea what I could do to you?" Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tension. "I think that's quite enough, Mr. Thompson." We all whirled around to see my mother, Victoria, standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers. "Mom?" I gasped. "What are you doing here?" Victoria's eyes were steel as she surveyed the scene. "Saving you from yourself, apparently. Officers, I believe you heard enough to make an arrest?" As the police moved to handcuff Dylan and Olivia, my mother turned to me, her expression a mix of disappointment and concern. "We need to talk, Grace. About the company, about your actions, about everything." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. The immediate danger had passed, but I knew the real reckoning was yet to come. As Dylan and Olivia were led away, shouting threats and accusations, I sank onto the couch, my head spinning. How had it come to this? How had I let myself be manipulated, first by Dylan, then by my own fear and desperation? Victoria sat beside me, her voice softer now. "I know you thought you were protecting yourself, protecting the company. But this isn't the way, Grace. We Thompson women don't hide or scheme. We face our challenges head on." I looked up at her, tears stinging my eyes. "I've ruined everything, haven't I?" She shook her head. "No, not everything. But you've got a long road ahead of you. Are you ready to face it?" As I met my mother's gaze, I felt a spark of the determination that had driven me all these years. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but I was done running, done hiding. "Yes," I said firmly, "I'm ready." Little did I know, the biggest challenges were yet to come, but for the first time in months I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it with honesty and courage. It was time to reclaim my life, my company, and my future. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I took the stand. Months of legal battles had led to this moment. Dylan and Olivia sat at the defendant's table, their faces a mix of anger and fear. My mother, Victoria, watched from the gallery, her expression unreadable. "Miss Thompson," my lawyer began, "please tell the court about the events leading up to your divorce." I took a deep breath, my voice steady as I recounted the betrayal, the manipulation, and yes, my own misguided attempts at protecting myself. As I spoke, I saw the jury's expressions shift from skepticism to understanding. When it was the defense's turn, Dylan's lawyer pounced. "Isn't it true, Miss Thompson, that you deliberately misrepresented your company's finances to reduce Mr. Thompson's divorce settlement?" I felt a moment of panic, but then I remembered my mother's words. Thompson women face challenges head-on. Yes, I admitted, my voice clear. I did, and I regret that decision deeply. I was scared and desperate, but that doesn't excuse my actions. A murmur ran through the courtroom. I caught Dylan's eye, saw the surprise there. He hadn't expected honesty. As the trial progressed, the full extent of Dylan and Olivia's conspiracy came to light. Financial records, text messages, and witness testimonies painted a damning picture of their greed and deceit. When the verdict was finally read, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Dylan and Olivia were found guilty of fraud and blackmail. They would face hefty fines and potential jail time. As for me, the judge took my honesty and cooperation into account, sentencing me to community service and a fine. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Victoria stepped forward, her arm around my shoulders. "My daughter made mistakes," she said firmly, "but she's owned up to them. Now, we're focused on moving forward and rebuilding trust in our company and our family." In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into damage control. I met with the board, laying out a plan to recover from the financial hit we'd taken. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to prove myself. One evening, as I was working late in my office, there was a knock at the door. To my surprise, it was Jack, the board member who had been kind to me all those months ago. "I hear you're looking for new board members," he said, a small smile on his face. I nodded. "Wary?" "We are." "Why?" "Because I think I know someone who'd be perfect. She's tough, ethical, and knows this company inside and out." It took me a moment to realize he was talking about me. "Jack, I don't think." He held up a hand. "Grace, you've made mistakes, but you've also shown incredible resilience and integrity. That's exactly what this company needs right now." Tears pricked at my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. As Jack left, I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by emotion. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself to feel hope. The next morning, I called a company-wide meeting. As I stood at the podium, facing my employees, I felt a surge of determination. "I know the past few months have been difficult," I began. "I've let you down, and for that, I'm truly sorry. But I promise you this. From this day forward, Thompson Industries will operate with complete transparency and integrity. We have a long road ahead, but together we can rebuild this company into something we can all be proud of." The applause that followed was tentative at first, then grew stronger. As I looked out at the sea of faces, I saw something I hadn't expected. Faith. They were willing to give me a second chance. Later that day, I visited my mother at home. She was recovering well, her strength returning day by day. "I'm proud of you, Grace," she said, squeezing my hand. "You've faced your demons and come out stronger." I smiled, feeling a peace I hadn't known in years. I learned from the best. As I left my mother's house, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, I was ready to face it. I had lost my marriage, my trust in others, and nearly my integrity. But in the process, I had found something far more valuable, myself. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. With a smile on my face and determination in my heart, I headed back to the office. There was work to be done, a company to rebuild, and a future to create. And this time, I would do it right.
The receipt falls from Heath's jacket pocket as I'm gathering laundry, landing face up on our bedroom floor. $400 for a single night at the Belmont Hotel. Last Tuesday, when he was supposed to be in Seattle for a sales conference. My hands shake as I pick up the paper, its crisp edges cutting into my fingertips. The date burns into my vision like a brand. I know that hotel. It's downtown, 20 minutes from our house. I hear Mason's video game sounds drifting up from the basement, the familiar beeping and explosions that usually fade into background noise. But now each sound feels like a needle under my skin. I fold the receipt carefully, tucking it into my back pocket. "Hey, beautiful." Heath appears in the doorway, fresh from his shower. Water droplets still cling to his neck, and he's wearing that easy smile that used to make my heart skip. "What's for dinner?" I was thinking pasta. My voice comes out steady, surprising me. "How was your morning meeting?" Good. Closed that Philip's account finally." He starts rummaging through his dresser. "Though honestly, these local clients are getting harder to land." Maybe I should focus more on out-of-state business. Like Seattle, I think, the receipt burning against my hip. Speaking of travel, how was that conference last week? You barely mentioned it. Heath pauses for just a fraction of a second before pulling out a shirt. Same old corporate stuff. Boring presentations, rubber chicken dinners. You know how it goes. I watch him button his shirt in the mirror, his fingers moving with practiced efficiency. 15 years of marriage, and I've seen this routine thousands of times. But now I'm noticing things. The new cologne he's wearing, the way he's been going to the gym more often, how his phone is always face down these days. Mom, Mason's voice carries up the stairs. Can Owen come over tomorrow? He got that new game we were talking about. We'll discuss it at dinner, honey. I call back, my eyes still fixed on Heath's reflection. Speaking of dinner, I should start the water boiling. In the kitchen, I mechanically gather ingredients, my mind racing. The Belmont Hotel. $400. A Tuesday night. Each detail feels like another piece of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Heath comes down just as I'm draining the pasta, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. His touch, once comforting, now makes my skin crawl. Smells amazing, he murmurs. I step away, busying myself with the sauce. Mason. Dinner. We sit around our kitchen table, the one Heath and I picked out when we first moved in. Mason chatters about his game. Heath checks his phone between bites, and I push pasta around my plate, tasting nothing. Oh, by the way, Heath says, not looking up from his screen, I might need to head to Portland next week. Big potential client. The fork freezes halfway to my mouth. Portland. Another hotel, another receipt, another lie. I set the fork down carefully, studying my husband's face as he types something on his phone. There's a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth, one I've never seen before. Actually, I hear myself say, we should talk about your travel schedule. After dinner. Heath glances up, meeting my eyes for the first time since we sat down. Something flickers across his face. Uncertainty? Fear? Before that practiced smile returns. Sure, honey, whatever you want. Mason looks between us, sensing the tension. I force a smile and ask him about his game, but my mind is already racing ahead, mapping out conversations and confrontations, planning moves and countermoves. The receipt feels heavy in my pocket, like the first stone in an avalanche that's about to begin. After sending Mason to school, I spend the morning digging through Heath's credit card statements. Each transaction feels like another betrayal. Expensive restaurants I've never been to, boutique shops where the prices make me wince. The Belmont wasn't a one-time thing. My phone buzzes. Heath. Can't make it to Mason's game tonight. Client emergency. I type back. He's been practicing all week for this. Then delete it. Send instead. Okay. The doorbell rings, startling me. Through the peephole, I see a delivery man holding an elaborate flower arrangement. Not for me. The card reads Serafina in flowing script. Wrong address, apparently. My fingers itch to open it, but I sign for the delivery and set it aside. Heath will have to deal with his own mistakes. At Mason's soccer game that evening, I spot a woman I've never seen before, standing at the far end of the field. Expensive clothes, perfect hair, watching our son with unusual interest. Something about her stance makes my stomach clench. Mom, Mason waves from the field. Did you see that save? I force a smile and cheer, but my eyes keep drifting back to the woman. She's gone before halftime. Great game, buddy. I tell Mason afterward, ruffling his hair. Ice cream? Can we wait for Dad? He said he might make it for the second half. He got caught up at work. The lie tastes bitter. But hey, more sundae toppings for us, right? At the ice cream shop, Mason picks at his dessert. Jake's parents got divorced last month, he says suddenly. He says his dad has a girlfriend now. The spoon freezes halfway to my mouth. That must be hard for Jake. Yeah. Mason swirls his ice cream into soup. His dad missed his birthday party. My phone lights up with a text from Heath. Running late. Don't wait up. Mom, Mason's voice is small. Are you and Dad okay? Before I can answer, a laugh from outside the shop catches my attention. Through the window, I see Heath walking past with a woman, the same one from the soccer field. His hand rests on the small of her back, intimate and familiar. They haven't noticed us. Mom, Mason turns to look, but I grab his attention. Hey, want to try some of mine? The mint chip is really good. That night, after Mason's asleep, I hear Heath's key in the lock. He smells like expensive perfume and whiskey. You missed a great game, I say from the darkness of the living room. He jumps. Jesus, Lila, why are you sitting in the dark? Serafina seems nice. The name drops like a stone between us. Does she like soccer? Heath's face hardens. Have you been following me? Didn't have to. She came to watch my son play. My voice stays steady, even as rage builds in my chest. Our son. It's not what you think. The flowers came here by mistake. I gesture to the arrangement. You might want to update her delivery address. He runs a hand through his hair, unnervous, till I used to find endearing. Look, things haven't been great between us. Save it. I stand up. I've already called a lawyer, but we need to tell Mason together. He deserves that much. You're overreacting. We can work this out. Can we? Because I saw you tonight, Heath. The way you looked at her. I swallow hard. You never look at me like that anymore. The silence stretches between us, filled with 15 years of memories turning sour. Finally, Heath grabs his keys. I need some air. Of course you do. I head upstairs, pausing on the third step. By the way, Mason asked about Jake's parents getting divorced today. Funny timing, isn't it? I don't wait for his response. In our bedroom, I start packing a bag, my hands steady despite everything. The woman at the soccer field keeps appearing in my mind, watching my son, marking her territory. Well, two can play at that game. The Children's Hospital Foundation Gala wasn't where I expected to find Serafina Kane, but there she is, holding court near the champagne fountain. Her laugh carries across the ballroom, drawing attention like a magnet. My mother squeezes my arm. Breathe, honey, Evelyn whispers. Remember why we're here.
Right.
The hospital's new pediatric wing. The reason I spent 3 months organizing donor lists and seating charts. Not to watch my husband's mistress charm potential investors in a dress that probably costs more than my car. Lila Merrick? A tall man approaches, hand extended. Owen Lark. I'm heading up the architectural team for the new wing. I shake his hand, grateful for the distraction. The designs are incredible, especially the rooftop garden concept. Mom, Mason appears beside me, tugging at his tie. Can I go to the game room? They have the new. He stops mid-sentence, eyes fixed across the room. I follow his gaze to see Heath walking in, making a beeline for Serafina. My son's face crumples with confusion as he watches his father kiss her cheek. Mason, I start, but he's already moving through the crowd. I'll go, Evelyn says, following him. Owen shifts uncomfortably. I should probably stay, I say, surprising myself.
Please.
I could use a friendly face right now. Serafina spots me, whispering something to Heath. They approach, her arm linked through his like they're attending their own wedding. Lila, darling. Her voice drips honey. Heath mentioned you organized this lovely event. The Children's Hospital, such a worthy cause. Yes, well, some of us think about more than just ourselves. The words slip out before I can stop them. Heath's jaw tightens. Where's Mason? Probably wondering why his father is here with another woman instead of his family. Serafina laughs, the sound like breaking glass. Oh, Heath told me how bitter you've been about the separation. But really, darling, scenes like this don't help anyone. Separation. I look at Heath. Is that what you're calling it? Lila, not here. No, please tell me more about our separation. Tell me about the nights at the Belmont, the flowers, the restaurants. Tell me about showing up at our son's soccer game like some twisted audition for his new mother. Owen steps closer, his presence steady behind me. Serafina's eyes flick to him, something calculating in her gaze. Moving on already, Lila? How? Predictable. That's enough. Heath grabs her elbow. We're leaving.
Why?
I step forward.
Stay.
Explain to our donors how you're abandoning your family for someone who sees you as nothing more than a stepping stone to better business connections. Serafina's smile falters. You don't know anything about us. I know everything about you. The failed startups, the burned investors, the lawsuits. Did you tell Heath about those? Or just about the ones you won? The color drains from her face. Behind me, I hear Owen stifle a laugh. You're making a scene, Heath hisses. No, I'm making a point. Stay away from my son. Both of you. I turn to leave, but Serafina grabs my arm. He chose me, Lila. Accept it. Mom, Mason stands there, watching us, my mother behind him with tears in her eyes. The room seems to freeze. Heath steps forward, reaching for our son, but Mason backs away. I want to go home, he says quietly. I walk to him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. He's shaking. Of course, honey. We can go. As we leave, I hear Serafina's voice. Heath, aren't you going to? But we're already moving through the crowd, my mother and Owen flanking us like guards. Outside, the night air hits my face, and I realize I'm shaking too. Not from fear or sadness, but from something else. Something that feels dangerously like power. Mom, Mason looks up at me. Are we okay? I pull him closer, catching Owen's concerned glance, feeling my mother's hand on my back. We will be, I promise. We will be. Mason's phone buzzes for the third time during dinner. He glances at it, then quickly turns it face down. No phones at the table. I remind him, but something in his expression makes me pause. Everything okay? Fine. He pushes his posture around. Can I go to Dad's this weekend? He's taking me to that new water park. The water park we'd planned to visit together next month. I thought we were going to. Serafina got VIP passes. He says her name casually, like he's known her forever. She says they have this awesome new slide that... The fork slips from my hand, clattering against the plate. You've been talking to Serafina? Mason's face closes off. She's nice, Mom. She helps me with math homework sometimes when I'm at Dad's. The room tilts sideways. Math homework. While I've been working late, trying to keep our lives stable, she's been playing tutor to my son. How long has this been happening? He shrugs, reaching for his phone again. It lights up with another message. Mason. My voice sharpens. Show me the phone. You can't tell me who to talk to. He clutches it to his chest. Dad says you're just jealous because Serafina's successful and you're stuck in the same boring job. The words hit like a slap. Before I can respond, the doorbell rings. Owen stands on the porch, holding a folder. Sorry to drop by unannounced, but I found something about Serafina you should see. Mason bolts upstairs, his door slamming as Owen spreads documents across my kitchen table. Business records, court filings, news clippings. She's done this before, Owen explains. Finds successful men, usually married, uses their connections to boost her businesses, then leaves them bankrupt when things go south. My eyes catch on a photo, Serafina, with another family, another child. These are from 3 years ago. Different city, different name. Owen taps the article. The kid was 12 too. A text lights at my phone. Heath asking for Mason's shoe size. For water park sandals, probably. I imagine Serafina shopping with them, playing happy families with my son. Mom, Mason appears in the doorway, backpack in hand. Dad's here to pick me up. Through the window, I see Heath's car idling in the driveway. Serafina sits in the passenger seat. Mason, wait. But he's already moving past me. Let him go, Owen says quietly. We need to be smart about this. I watch through the window as my son climbs into the back seat. Serafina turns, saying something that makes him laugh. The same laugh he used to share with me over inside jokes and silly stories. She's not just taking my husband. I realize. She's taking my whole life. Owen gathers the documents. There's more. Her company's in trouble again. Major investors pulling out. Heath doesn't know it yet, but he's about to lose everything, including Mason. I turn from the window. Unless we stop her first. Lila. Owen's voice is careful. What are you thinking? I pick up one of the articles, studying Serafina's previous victim, a man who lost his business, his home, his family. I'm thinking it's time to make some calls. Starting with her former investors. That could get messy. She's poisoning my son against me. My hands shake as I gather the papers. Messy doesn't scare me anymore. Owen watches me, concern mixing with something else in his expression. Just be careful. Don't let revenge cost you what you're trying to protect. But as I look at the empty chair where Mason should be sitting, at his half-eaten dinner growing cold, I realize some costs are already too high. Serafina Kane isn't just playing games with my family, she's declaring war. And I'm done playing defense. The email from Serafina's former business partner arrives at 3 a.m. I've been awake anyway, scrolling through Mason's social media, watching my son's life unfold in photos where I don't exist. Serafina teaching him to ski. Heath and Mason at expensive restaurants. The perfect little family she's building on the ruins of mine. She'll destroy everything, the email warns. Not just the money, the relationships, the trust, everything. Get out while you can. My phone rings, startling me. Mason. Mom. His voice sounds small, younger than 12. Can you come get me? I'm already grabbing my keys. What's wrong? They're fighting. Really bad. About money, I think. Dad threw something and a crash in the background. Please. I break every speed limit getting to Heath's new condo. Mason's waiting outside, huddled on the steps in his pajamas. Through the open window above, I hear Serafina's voice, sharp as broken glass. You promised me that investment would come through. Do you know how much I've lost because of you? Mason climbs into my car, clutching his backpack. Can I stay with you tonight? Of course, honey. I resist the urge to speed away, to protect him from whatever's unfolding upstairs. Want to talk about it? He shakes his head then. Serafina's different now. She gets mad a lot. Dad, too. At home, I make hot chocolate while Mason settles on the couch. His phone keeps lighting up with texts from Heath, from Serafina. He ignores them. Remember when we used to do this? He wraps his hands around the mug. When I couldn't sleep? Every thunderstorm. I sit beside him, careful to leave space. You'd count the seconds between lightning and thunder. Serafina says that's baby stuff. He stares into his chocolate. She says I need to grow up faster. The familiar rage rises, but before I can respond, my phone buzzes.
Owen.
Her company's imploding, his text reads. Board meeting tomorrow. You should be there. Mason's phone lights up again. Heath calling now. He lets it ring. They were talking about selling the lake house, he says quietly. Dad signed something for her business, and now. The lake house. Where Mason learned to swim. Where we spent every summer. Where Heath proposed. That's not going to happen. The words come out harder than intended. How do you know? Because I've spent weeks building a case against her. Because Owen's contacts at the investment board are ready to expose her pattern of fraud. Because tomorrow, her carefully constructed world will shatter. But looking at Mason's tired face, I realize revenge won't heal what's broken here. Mom, he shifts closer, like he used to during thunderstorms. I'm sorry I said those things before. About you being jealous and boring. It's okay, honey. No, it's not. His voice cracks. She made it sound so cool at first. Like we'd be this amazing new family. But now Dad's always angry, and she keeps talking about sending me to boarding school, and I just want. He stops, shoulders shaking. I pull him close, feeling his tears soak my shirt. My phone buzzes again. Owen sent the board meeting details, the evidence we've gathered, everything needed to destroy Serafina Kane tomorrow. But Mason's breathing is evening out, his body heavy with sleep, trusting me to keep him safe. Like I used to. Like I always should have. I text Owen back. Need to handle this differently. For Mason. His response is immediate. Whatever you need. I'm here. Outside. Thunder rumbles. Mason stirs but doesn't wake. I start counting seconds automatically, a habit from all those stormy nights, realizing some patterns are worth keeping. And some cycles of hurt need to end, not with revenge, but with repair. Tomorrow will come with its own storms. But tonight, I hold my son and plan a different kind of justice, one that might actually heal what's broken. The lake house looks smaller somehow, its windows dark against the setting sun. Mason's old tire swing hangs motionless as Heath signs away 15 years of memories to cover Seraphina's debts. You don't have to do this, I tell him, watching him initial each page without reading. We can find another way. There is no other way. His hand shakes slightly. She just needs time to sort out the business. Once the new investors. There are no new investors, Heath. I slide Owen's report across the table. She's done this before. Multiple times. He pushes the papers back without looking. You're just trying to poison everything good in my life. Like always.
Dad.
Mason appears in the doorway, clutching his old fishing rod. Can we go out on the lake one last time? Before. Sorry, buddy. Seraphina's waiting at the lawyer's office. Heath stands, gathering the sale documents. Maybe next summer we can. There won't be a next summer here. Mason's voice cracks. You're selling everything for her, just like the college fund. Heath freezes.
Who told you about that?
I heard you fighting. Mason's knuckles whiten around the fishing rod. You said you had to borrow from my account because her business needed cash. You promised you'd pay it back. The room goes still. I look at Heath, really look at him, seeing the new lines around his eyes, the expensive watch that can't hide his trembling hands. Mason, go wait in the car. I say quietly. No. He hurls the fishing rod across the room. I hate this. I hate her. And I hate you for letting her ruin everything. He storms out, screen door slamming behind him. Through the window, I watch him run down to the dock where he learned to fish, where Heath taught him to swim, where our family used to be whole. His college fund? My voice sounds distant, cold. Really, Heath? It's temporary. Once the deal closes. There is no deal. I pull out my phone, showing him the email from Seraphina's former partner. She's already moved most of the money offshore. By tomorrow, she'll be gone.
Just like last time.
And the time before that. You're lying. But his face has gone pale. She loves me. She loves Mason. She loves what you can give her. And now that's gone too. His phone buzzes Seraphina, demanding to know where he is. He stares at the screen, then at the lake house papers, then through the window at Mason. I can't lose her, he whispers. You already lost everything else. He leaves without another word, sale documents clutched to his chest like a shield. I watch him drive away, wondering how the man I loved for 15 years became this stranger who would sacrifice his son's future for a con artist's lies. My phone rings, Owen. The board meeting's starting, he says. Seraphina's there. If you want to stop this. It's too late. I watch Mason on the dock, his shoulders shaking. He gave her Mason's college fund. Silence on the line. Then, I'll have my lawyer draw up emergency custody papers. With the financial fraud evidence. No. I think of Mason's face when he threw the fishing rod, all that hurt and betrayal. More legal battles won't heal that. I need to try something else first. Lila. Trust me. I hang up and walk down to the dock, sitting beside Mason. The lake stretches before us, reflecting the dying sun like shattered glass. Remember when you were 6, I say softly, and you fell off the dock?
You were so scared, but you knew how to swim.
You just needed to remember you were strong enough. He wipes his eyes with his sleeve. What do we do now, Mom? I pull him close, feeling his heart race against mine. We remember we're strong enough. Behind us, the tire swing moves slightly in the breeze, casting a shadow that looks almost like a noose. The investment board meeting erupts into chaos when I walk in with Mason. Seraphina's perfectly composed face cracks for just a second before her smile returns. Lila, darling, this is a private meeting. Her voice carries that familiar honey-sweet tone. And Mason should be in school. He needs to hear this. I guide Mason to a seat, noting how Heath won't meet either of our eyes. Everyone does. The board members shift uncomfortably as I connect my laptop to the projector. Seraphina's previous victims appear on screen, the ex-husband in Seattle, the business partner in Chicago, the family in Boston. All their stories, their losses, their shattered lives. This is harassment. Serafina stands, smoothing her designer dress. Heath, tell them. About my college fund? Mason's voice cuts through the room. Or about the lake house? Heath flinches like he's been struck. Serafina's smile doesn't waver, but her hands betray her, crushing the paper cup she's holding. Mason, sweetie, those are temporary arrangements. Once the new funding comes through, there is no new funding. I pull up the offshore account transfers. Just like there wasn't any in Seattle, or Chicago, or Boston. It's the same pattern, isn't it? Find a successful man, preferably married with children. Isolate him from his family. Drain his assets. Move on. The board members lean forward, murmuring as they study the evidence. Serafina's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear. This is ridiculous. She laughs, but it sounds hollow. Heath, tell them about our plans. The expansion, the merger. The merger that fell through last week? Owen steps into the room, holding more documents. Or the one that never existed? Heath stands suddenly, knocking over his chair. You said those deals were confirmed. You said. She says a lot of things, Dad. Mason's voice trembles slightly. Like how you'd buy back the lake house. Like how we'd be a better family. Serafina's smile finally cracks. You ungrateful little. Don't. My voice could freeze hell. Don't you dare speak to my son. She turns to Heath, reaching for his hand. Baby, they're trying to turn you against me. After everything we've built. I project the final document, Heath's empty bank accounts, the drained college fund, the mortgaged house. You haven't built anything. You've destroyed everything he had. Everything we had. The board chairman clears his throat. MS. Kane, in light of these allegations. Allegations. She laughs again, higher this time, desperate. This is just a bitter ex-wife's revenge fantasy. Heath, tell them. But Heath is staring at the numbers on screen, at the proof of his son's stolen future. Something breaks in his expression. The lake house was my grandfather's, he whispers. Mason learned to swim there. Serafina's mask shatters completely. She grabs her purse, heading for the door, but security blocks her path. This isn't over, she hisses at me. You think you've won? You've got nothing but a broken family and a kid who'll hate you both. No, Mason stands, walking to my side. I know exactly who broke our family, and it wasn't Mom. The security guards lead Serafina away as she shrieks about lawyers and lawsuits. The board members file out, leaving just our fractured family and Owen. Heath approaches slowly, like a man walking to his execution. Mason, I'm so sorry. I know what you thought. Mason's voice is older somehow harder. But Mom never stopped fighting for me. Even when I was awful to her. Even when I believed Serafina's lies. He turns to me, and for a moment I see my little boy again, the one who needed me to check for monsters under his bed. Can we go home now? I nod, taking his hand. Heath starts to speak, but Owen steps between us. I think you've done enough, he says quietly. We leave Heath standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of his choices. Outside, the sun breaks through the clouds, and Mason squeezes my hand. You okay? I ask. He considers this. No. But we will be. 6 months later, I stand in the kitchen of our new house, watching Mason and Owen argue good-naturedly over pancake toppings. The morning sun streams through windows that face east, my one non-negotiable requirement when house hunting. Blueberries are clearly superior, Owen insists, sliding a plate across the counter. That's because you're old, Mason retorts, drowning his stack in maple syrup. Mom, tell him chocolate chips are better. I laugh, the sound easier now than it used to be. I'm staying neutral in this war. The doorbell rings. Through the window, I see Heath's car in the driveway. Mason tenses slightly, but keeps eating. I can get it, Owen offers. No, I've got this. I squeeze his shoulder as I pass. Heath looks older on the porch, more grounded somehow. The designer clothes are gone, replaced by familiar worn jeans and a work shirt. He holds up a fishing rod, Mason's old one from the lake house. Found this while cleaning out the storage unit, he says. Thought he might want it back. Through the window behind me, I hear Mason laugh at something Owen said. Heath's eyes drift toward the sound, then back to me. He seems happy.
He is.
Most days. I take the fishing rod. The therapy's helping. Both of us, actually. Heath nods, shifts his weight. I got a job offer. In Seattle. He rushes on before I can respond. I'm not taking it. I won't leave him again. I just wanted you to know I had the choice this time. And I'm choosing him. Good. The word comes out softer than intended. Serafina's sentencing is next week, he says quietly. I know. Are you going? I think about the folder of evidence in my office, the hours spent helping prosecutors track her pattern of destruction.
No.
I'm done looking backward. He starts to say something else, but Mason appears behind me. Is that my old rod? Heath's face lights up. Yeah, buddy. Thought maybe, if you want, we could fix it up. The reel needs work, but Mom and Owen are taking me fishing next weekend, Mason says. At the state park. Maybe you could come? If Mom says it's okay. I feel the weight of their gazes. My son's hopeful, my ex-husband's careful. Through the kitchen window, I see Owen pretending not to watch, giving us space while staying close enough if needed. One day at a time, I tell them both. Mason takes the rod, studies it. The handle's loose. Owen has tools in the garage. Want to see? Heath follows Mason around the house, their voices fading as they discuss fishing knots and lure types. I return to the kitchen, where Owen's cleaning up breakfast. You okay? He asks. Actually, yes. I lean against the counter, watching father and son through the garage window. You know what Mason told me yesterday? He's been saving his allowance. Says he wants to help buy back the lake house someday. Owen raises an eyebrow. Really? Not for Heath.
For us.
All of us. I smile at his surprised expression. His words, not mine. Smart kid.
Yeah.
I watch Mason demonstrate something with a fishing rod, Heath nodding intently. He gets it from his mom. Owen laughs, pulling me close. Through the window, I see Mason smile, really smile, at something Heath says. It's not perfect, this new reality we're building. There are still hard days, therapy sessions, moments when the past threatens to overwhelm us. But here in this kitchen, with the morning sun warming my face and the sound of my son's laughter drifting in from the garage, I realize something. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's about building something stronger from the ruins. Mom, Mason calls. Come look at this. I go to them, stepping into the future one day at a time, leaving the shadows of the past where they belong, behind us.
I was sitting in the doctor's office, tapping my foot against the cold linoleum floor, waiting for the results of what I thought was just a routine checkup. The air was thick with that sterile antiseptic smell that always made me feel slightly on edge. The door swung open and Dr. Patel walked in, her expression warm but serious. "Lila," she said, settling into her chair. "I have some news that might come as a surprise." I braced myself, suddenly aware of the tightness in my chest. "Okay, hit me with it." "You're pregnant." The words hung in the air, echoing in my mind like a bell tolling in the distance. Pregnant. I was pregnant. I felt a rush of emotions, joy, fear, confusion, all crashing into each other like waves in a storm. I'd always wanted to be a mother, but Caleb and I had talked about waiting a few more years. I could already hear his voice, cool and dismissive, echoing in my head. I thanked Dr. Patel, my mind spinning as I left the office. The drive home was a blur, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. I kept glancing at my reflection in the rearview mirror, searching for some sign of change, some clue that my life had just shifted on its axis. When I walked into our apartment, Caleb was sprawled on the couch, his laptop balanced on his knees. He looked up, his eyes flickering with the briefest hint of curiosity before settling back into their usual indifference. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk." Can it wait? He asked, not bothering to look up this time. I'm in the middle of something. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. No, it can't wait, he sighed, closing the laptop with a pointed click. All right, what's up? I'm pregnant. For a moment, there was silence. Then a slow, creeping smile spread across his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. Wow, that's unexpected. Unexpected, I echoed, feeling a knot of frustration tighten in my chest. Is that all you have to say? He shrugged, leaning back into the couch. I mean, we talked about this, Lila. We agreed it wasn't the right time. I know, I replied, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and vulnerability. But life doesn't always go according to plan. Caleb stood up, running a hand through his hair, his expression unreadable. This changes everything, you know. We'll have to rethink our plans, maybe even put some things on hold. I watched him, feeling the first pangs of isolation creeping in. This was supposed to be a moment of shared excitement, a step forward in our lives together. Instead, it felt like I was standing on the edge of a chasm, and Caleb was already turning away. Do you even want this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, and that pause spoke louder than any words could. I just need some time to think. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah, okay. As Caleb disappeared into the bedroom, I sank onto the couch, staring at the blank television screen. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, but one thing was clear. I was in this alone, at least for now. Later that night, as I lay in bed, listening to Caleb's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. A crack had appeared in the foundation of our marriage, and I had no idea how to fix it. I closed my eyes, trying to find some comfort in the darkness, but all I could see was the uncertain future stretching out before me. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for the life growing inside me. Caleb would have to come around eventually, right? But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder, what if he didn't? What if this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something I wasn't prepared for? Questions swirled in my mind, unresolved and persistent as I slipped into a restless sleep, leaving me with a sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake. The morning after my conversation with Caleb, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, scrutinizing the faint lines around my eyes. I felt older, somehow, as if the weight of the news had etched itself into my skin overnight. I needed to tell Eleanor, Caleb's mother. She was the kind of woman who liked to know everything about her family, preferably before anyone else did. I called her that afternoon, my stomach fluttering with nerves. Eleanor picked up on the second ring, her voice crisp and expectant. Lila, dear, what a surprise. To what do I owe this pleasure? Hi, Eleanor. I have some news I thought you'd want to hear directly from me. Oh. Her tone was polite but edged with curiosity, like a cat that had just caught sight of a mouse. I'm pregnant. There was a pause, long enough for me to imagine her expression, eyebrows raised. Lips pursed in that familiar way she had when she was trying to mask her true feelings. Well, that's certainly unexpected, she finally said, echoing Caleb's sentiments from the night before. Have you and Caleb discussed how this will impact his career? His career. Of course, it always came back to that. We're working through it, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Good. It's important to stay focused on what matters. A baby is a big responsibility, Lila, and I hope you're prepared for that. I am, I said, trying not to let her words sting. We both are. We hung up soon after, the conversation leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt more alone than ever, caught between Caleb's indifference and Eleanor's thinly veiled criticism. I needed to clear my head, so I decided to meet Zoe for coffee. Zoe greeted me with a hug that was warm and reassuring. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, pulling back to study my face. I managed a weak smile. I think I'm living with one. We sat down and I filled her in on everything. Caleb's reaction, Eleanor's cold reception. Zoe listened intently, her eyes narrowing with every word. "That's just like them," she said, shaking her head. "Always so focused on themselves. What about you, Lila? How are you holding up?" I shrugged, staring into my coffee. "I'm trying to be optimistic, but it's hard when it feels like I'm the only one who cares." Zoe reached across the table, giving my hand a squeeze. "You're not alone. I'm here and I'll help you through this." Her words were a balm, soothing the raw edges of my anxiety. But as we talked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was brewing beneath the surface, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. A few days later, I decided to cut back on my hours at work. I hoped it would give me more time to focus on my health and maybe, just maybe, ease some of the tension at home. When I told Caleb, he looked at me like I'd suggested we sell the house and move to Mars. "You're cutting back?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "Isn't that a bit premature?" "I thought it might help," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Less stress for both of us." He shook his head, a disapproving frown creasing his forehead. "It just seems like you're giving up, Lila. We need to be strong right now." The irony of his words was not lost on me. "I'm trying to be strong," I replied, biting back the urge to say more. "I just thought." "Maybe think a little less," he interrupted, his tone sharp. "We've got enough on our plates." I nodded, swallowing my retort. It was easier than starting another argument, especially when I knew it would lead nowhere. But his words lingered, gnawing at my resolve. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. Caleb had been distracted lately, more so than usual. And then there was Eleanor's cryptic comment about his career. It was like I was piecing together a puzzle, but half the pieces were missing. The next morning, as Caleb left for work, I noticed something odd. His phone, usually glued to his side, was left charging on the kitchen counter. It was a small thing, but it struck me as unusual. I picked it up, hesitating for a moment. Then, driven by a mix of curiosity and something deeper, I unlocked it. What I found was unexpected. A message from an unknown number, signed with a single initial, M. "Looking forward to tonight. Can't wait to see you. M." My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the implications sinking in. This was more than just a crack in the foundation. It was a chasm, threatening to swallow everything I thought I knew. I put the phone down, my hands trembling. This was the twist I hadn't seen coming, a revelation that turned my world upside down. I had to know the truth, and I had to know it now. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind replaying the message from Caleb's phone over and over. The initial shock had worn off, leaving behind a simmering anger that I couldn't quite shake. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't sure how. That's when I decided to call Ian, my detective friend. Ian picked up on the first ring, his voice steady and reassuring. "Lila, what's up?" "I need your help," I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "I think Caleb's cheating on me." There was a pause, then Ian's voice came back, calm and professional. "Tell me everything." I recounted the late nights, the secretive behavior, and finally the message. Ian listened without interrupting, letting me get it all out. "Do you want me to look into it?" he asked once I'd finished. "Yes," I replied, my resolve hardening with each word. "I need to know the truth." "All right, I'll see what I can find." After hanging up, I felt a small sense of relief. Ian was good at what he did, and if there was something to uncover, he'd find it. But as the day wore on, my relief turned to anxiety. What if Caleb found out? What if I was wrong? That evening, Caleb came home later than usual, his tie askew and his eyes tired. He barely glanced at me as he walked past, heading straight for the shower. I watched him go, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. When he finally emerged, I decided to test the waters. "Long day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he replied, rubbing his neck. "Lots of meetings. Anything interesting?" I pressed, searching his face for any hint of deception. "Not really," he said, his eyes flicking away from mine. Just the usual. I nodded, biting back the urge to confront him. Instead, I turned back to my book, pretending to read while my mind raced with possibilities. The next few days passed in a tense blur. Caleb's behavior didn't change. If anything, he seemed more distant, more preoccupied. I kept waiting for Ian to call, each ring of the phone sending my heart into overdrive. Finally, the call came. Ian's voice was low, almost apologetic. "Lila, I found something." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "He's been seeing someone," Ian said, his words careful and measured. "Her name's Marissa Lane. They've been meeting at a hotel downtown." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Marissa. The initial from the message. It was all real, and it was worse than I'd imagined. "Thank you, Ian," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want me to keep digging?" he asked, his tone gentle. "No," I replied, my mind made up. "I've heard enough." After hanging up, I sat in silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. I needed to confront Caleb, but the thought of it filled me with dread. How could he do this to us? To me? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling as Caleb slept beside me. My mind was a whirlwind of anger and betrayal, but beneath it all was a deeper, more unsettling question. What was I going to do now? The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity. I needed to talk to Zoe. She'd always been my rock, and I knew she'd help me figure out my next steps. We met at a small cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. Zoe listened as I recounted Ian's findings, her expression growing darker with each word. "That bastard," she said, her voice low and fierce. "I knew he was trouble." "What do he do, Zoe?" I asked, feeling more lost than ever. "You confront him," she replied, her eyes blazing with determination. "You deserve answers, Lila." I nodded, taking comfort in her unwavering support. But as I left the cafe, a new thought occurred to me. What if confronting Caleb wasn't enough? What if I needed to do more to protect myself and my future? The idea of revenge flickered in the back of my mind, a dangerous temptation that I couldn't quite ignore. I'd always believed in justice, in doing what was right. But this situation was testing everything I thought I knew. As I walked home, I realized that my understanding of justice was evolving. It wasn't just about getting answers or confronting Caleb. It was about reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my sense of self. And if that meant taking drastic measures, then so be it. With each step, I felt a new resolve building within me. Caleb had made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let him control my life any longer. I spent the next few days in a fog, my mind replaying the conversation with Ian and the images it conjured of Caleb and Marissa together. The betrayal was a living thing, gnawing at my insides and making it hard to focus on anything else. I knew I had to confront Caleb, but the thought filled me with dread. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Caleb walked in, his face a mask of practiced normalcy. I watched him from the corner of my eye, my heart pounding in my chest. It was time. "Caleb," I said, setting the knife down with a deliberate clatter. "We need to talk." He paused, a hint of irritation flashing across his face. "Can it wait? I've had a long day." "No, it can't," I replied, my voice firm. "I know about Marissa." Color drained from his face, leaving him looking pale and exposed. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at me as if I'd slapped him. "I don't know what you're talking about," he finally said, his voice tight. "Don't lie to me, Caleb," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "I've seen the messages. I know about the hotel." He opened his mouth, then closed it again, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "It's not what you think," he said at last, but the words rang hollow. "Then tell me what it is," I challenged, my anger bubbling to the surface. He hesitated, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. "It's complicated," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Complicated?" I echoed, my heart aching with the weight of his betrayal. You're cheating on me, Caleb. There's nothing complicated about that. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. That's not good enough. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a hard, defensive edge. We can work through this, he said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. We can fix it. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. Fix it? How do you fix something like this, Caleb? He took a step toward me, his hands outstretched. I'll end it with Marissa. I promise. I studied him, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe him, to cling to the hope that we could somehow salvage our marriage. But another part of me, the part that had grown stronger with each new revelation, knew that it wasn't enough. I need time, I said, stepping back. Time to think. He nodded, relief washing over his face. Of course. Take all the time you need. As he left the room, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of something else. Empowerment. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control of my own life. The next day, I met with Zoe again, needing her perspective to help me sort through the chaos. We sat on a park bench, the autumn leaves swirling around us like confetti. So, what's the plan? Zoe asked, her eyes sharp and focused. I don't know, I admitted, staring at the ground. Part of me wants to fight for this, for us. But another part of me is just done. Zoe nodded, her expression thoughtful. You have to do what's right for you, Lila. Not for him, not for anyone else. I know, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But it's not that simple. She reached over, squeezing my hand. You're stronger than you think. Whatever you decide, I'll be here. As we sat there, a new thought began to take shape in my mind. Maybe this wasn't just about Caleb's betrayal. Maybe it was about something bigger. About reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my sense of self-worth. The idea of revenge still lingered, but it was shifting, evolving into something else. Maybe the best revenge wasn't about hurting Caleb or Marissa. Maybe it was about finding my own path, one that didn't involve them. With that realization, I felt a sense of clarity, a new determination to take control of my future. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let Caleb or anyone else dictate my life any longer. Conference was being held at a sleek hotel on the outskirts of town, its glass facade glinting in the afternoon sun. As I approached, my heart pounded with a mix of dread and determination. I had to see it for myself, to confront Caleb and Marissa in their deceit. I slipped through the lobby, my footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The elevator ride to the conference floor felt interminable, each ding marking a step closer to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was ready for. When the doors finally opened, I hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady myself. I could hear the murmur of voices and the clinking of glasses from the reception area. I moved forward, scanning the room for Caleb. And then I saw them. Caleb and Marissa stood together, their heads bent close in conversation. They were laughing, oblivious to the world around them. My heart twisted painfully at the sight, the reality of their betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. I walked over, my steps purposeful, my resolve hardening with each stride. Caleb looked up as I approached, his smile freezing on his face. Marissa turned, her expression shifting from surprise to something more calculating. Lila, Caleb said, his voice tinged with a nervous edge. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Marissa's eyes flickered with something like amusement. I didn't realize you'd be joining us, Lila. I wasn't invited, I said, my gaze fixed on Caleb. But I thought I'd drop by and see what you've been up to. Caleb shifted uncomfortably, his hands slipping into his pockets. Lila, this isn't what it looks like. Really? I asked, my voice rising. Because it looks like you're here with her, not at a conference. Marissa smirked, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. Caleb, maybe we should tell her the truth. I felt a chill run down my spine. What truth? Caleb hesitated, his eyes darting to Marissa before returning to me. I was going to tell you, Lila. Tell me what? I demanded, my patience wearing thin. Marissa stepped forward, her expression triumphant. Caleb and I are planning to be together. After the baby is born, he's leaving you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, my breath catching in my throat. Is that true, Caleb? He looked away, his silence more damning than any words could have been. I felt a surge of anger, my vision blurring with unshed tears. You coward, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. You couldn't even tell me yourself. Caleb opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. Save it. I've heard enough. I turned on my heel, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. As I left the room, I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I needed to get out of there to clear my head. I found myself outside, the cool air a balm against my heated skin. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts racing. I'd known Caleb was unfaithful, but hearing him confirm it, hearing their plans for the future, was a blow I hadn't anticipated. I stopped by a park bench, sinking down onto the worn wood. My mind was a jumble of anger, betrayal, and something else, relief. In a way, their admission had freed me. I no longer had to pretend, to hope for something that was never going to happen. But as I sat there, another thought occurred to me. What if this wasn't just about Caleb and Marissa? What if there was more at stake? The idea of revenge flickered in the back of my mind, a dangerous temptation that I couldn't quite ignore. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Zoe's number. She picked up almost immediately, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. Lila, what's wrong? I need your help, I said, my voice steady despite the tumult inside. I need to figure out how to protect myself. Zoe was silent for a moment, then her voice came back, firm and reassuring. Whatever you need, I'm here. As I hung up, I felt a new resolve building within me. Caleb and Marissa had made their choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let them dictate my life any longer. It was time to take control, to fight back, and to reclaim what was rightfully mine. With that thought in mind, I stood up, my path clear before me. Whatever happened next, I was ready. The days after the conference were a blur of raw emotions and sleepless nights. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. The betrayal, the lies, it was all too much. I was barely holding it together, the weight of it all pressing down on me. One morning I woke up feeling off, a dull ache in my abdomen that I couldn't ignore. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just stress. But as the day wore on, the pain intensified, sharp and unrelenting. I knew something was wrong. I called Zoe in a panic, my voice trembling as I explained what was happening. She insisted on taking me to the hospital, her concern palpable over the phone. Within minutes, she was at my door, her face a mask of worry. The hospital, the sterile white walls, and the hum of machinery did little to calm my nerves. The doctor's expression was grave as he delivered the news. I was losing the baby. The words hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the breath from my lungs. I felt a numbness spread through me, a cold detachment that belied the turmoil inside. Zoe held my hand, her eyes filled with unshed tears, but I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel anything at all. As I lay there, the reality of my situation crashed over me in waves. I had lost the baby, and with it, the last thread of hope that had been holding me together. Caleb's betrayal, the end of our marriage, it all seemed insurmountable now. When I finally returned home, the apartment felt different, empty and foreign. I wandered through the rooms, touching the familiar objects that now seemed to belong to someone else. I found myself in the nursery, the room we'd never gotten around to decorating. It was a stark reminder of everything I'd lost. Caleb came home later that evening, his face drawn and weary. I could see the guilt etched into his features, but I couldn't bring myself to care. We sat across from each other, the silence heavy and oppressive. "I heard about the baby," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to find the words. "I'm sorry, Lila. I never meant for any of this to happen." His apology rang hollow, a meaningless gesture that did nothing to ease the pain. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I'd once loved, now a stranger. "I don't know what to say, Caleb," I replied, my voice flat. "It's too late for sorry." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the distance between us insurmountable. "I'm leaving," I said, the decision crystallizing in my mind. "I can't do this anymore." His eyes widened, panic flickering across his face. "Lila, wait. We can work through this." "We can." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "We can't. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." As I spoke, I felt a strange sense of calm, a clarity that had been absent for so long. I was done fighting for something that was never going to work. It was time to let go, to find my own path. The next few days were a whirlwind of packing and goodbyes. Zoe was a constant presence, her support unwavering as I prepared to leave the life I'd known. As I packed the last of my things, I found a letter tucked into one of Caleb's drawers. It was from Marissa, detailing plans to exploit Eleanor's finances to fund their new life together. The revelation was a final, bitter blow, confirming everything I'd feared about Caleb's intentions. I knew I had to tell Eleanor, to warn her before it was too late. I met Eleanor at a quiet cafe, the air thick with unspoken tension. She looked at me with a mixture of skepticism and concern, her eyes searching mine for answers. "What's this about, Lila?" she asked, her voice sharp. I slid the letter across the table, watching as her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "Caleb and Marissa are planning to use your assets to fund their life together," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She stared at the letter, her hands trembling. "I can't believe this," she murmured, her voice breaking. "My own son." "I'm sorry, Eleanor," I said, reaching out to touch her hand. "I thought you should know." As we sat there, a new understanding passed between us, a bond forged in shared betrayal. I realized then that my ideas of revenge had shifted. It wasn't about getting even, it was about protecting those who still mattered. As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of closure. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I was ready to face it. I had lost so much, but I had also found something invaluable, myself. And that was a start. Confrontation with Eleanor had left me drained, but it had also given me a sense of purpose. I knew what I had to do next. The truth about Caleb and Marissa's plans was out in the open, and it was time to face them both head-on. I decided to meet Caleb at our apartment, the place that had once been a home and now felt like a battleground. I waited for him to return, the silence of the room pressing in on me as I rehearsed what I would say. My heart was a drumbeat of anxiety and determination. When Caleb finally walked through the door, his expression was a mixture of surprise and apprehension. He must have sensed that something was different, that I was different. "Lila," he said, setting his briefcase down. "What's going on?" I stood up, meeting his gaze with a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. "We need to talk." He nodded, a wary look in his eyes. "All right." I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I know about your plan with Marissa. To use Eleanor's money." His face blanched, the color draining away like water from a sieve. "Save it," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "I've already told Eleanor." His eyes widened, panic flickering across his features. "You did what?" "You heard me," I said, crossing my arms. "I told her everything." Caleb ran a hand through his hair, his movements agitated. "Lila, you don't understand." "No, Caleb." "You don't understand," I snapped, my voice rising. "You've been lying and manipulating everyone around you. And for what? To run off with Marissa. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off again. I've lost everything because of you. The baby, our marriage, my trust. And now you want to destroy your mother's life too. Caleb's shoulders slumped, a defeated look settling over him. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Yet here we are, I said, my voice softer now, but no less firm. It's over, Caleb. You've lost everything. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved. But it was too late for regrets, too late for apologies. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice hollow. I want you to leave, I said, the words coming out with a finality that surprised even me. I want you to leave and never come back. He nodded, a resigned acceptance in his eyes. All right. As he turned to go, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a newfound sense of freedom. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. But just as he reached the door, it swung open to reveal Marissa, her expression one of smug satisfaction. I see you've finally grown a backbone, Lila, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I bristled at her words, my anger flaring anew. And I see you're still as deluded as ever, Marissa. She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Oh, please. Caleb was never yours to keep. Maybe not, I replied, taking a step forward, my gaze steady. But he's not yours either. Not anymore. Marissa's smile faltered, a flash of uncertainty crossing her face. What do you mean? I mean that it's over, I said, my voice ringing with conviction. You've both lost. Caleb looked between us, his face a mask of confusion and regret. Marissa, maybe we should. No, she snapped, her eyes flashing. We're not done here. Yes, we are, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. You can't manipulate your way out of this one, Marissa. It's time to face the consequences. As the words left my mouth, I saw the realization dawn on her face, the understanding that her plans had crumbled. She turned to Caleb, her expression pleading. Caleb, we can still. But he shook his head, a weary resignation in his eyes. No, Marissa. It's over. With that, he walked past her, out the door, leaving her standing there, alone and defeated. I watched him go, a sense of closure settling over me. Marissa looked at me, her bravado gone, replaced by a hollow vulnerability. You think you've won, Lila? I shook my head, a small smile playing on my lips. This was never about winning. It was about doing what's right. As she left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Confrontation had been painful but necessary. I had faced my greatest challenge and come through stronger for it. Standing there in the quiet aftermath, I understood that justice wasn't about revenge. It was about finding peace, about reclaiming my life and moving forward. And for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to do just that. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of change and reflection. I moved into a small apartment, a cozy space that felt like a fresh start. It was a blank canvas, waiting for me to fill it with new memories and new beginnings. I spent my mornings at the school, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of my work. Helping others navigate their challenges gave me a sense of purpose, a reminder that life continued to move forward no matter how heavy the past. Eleanor reached out to me a few days later. We met at a small cafe, the same one where I'd shown her the letter. This time, the atmosphere was different, less tense, more hopeful. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Eleanor began, her voice steady but soft. About Caleb and Marissa. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. I've decided to cut Caleb off financially, she said, her eyes meeting mine with a resolute determination. He needs to learn that actions have consequences. I felt a surge of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Eleanor. I know that wasn't easy. She sighed, a hint of sadness in her smile. It's the right thing to do. I see that now. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. Then Eleanor reached across the table, her hand covering mine. I'm sorry, Lila. For everything. I should have seen what was happening sooner. Her apology was unexpected and it touched me deeply. We all make mistakes, I said, squeezing her hand. The important thing is what we do next. She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm proud of you, Lila. You've shown incredible strength. As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Eleanor's support meant more than I'd realized, and it marked a new chapter in our relationship, one built on mutual respect and understanding. Back at my apartment, I found Zoe waiting for me, a bottle of wine in hand. Thought you could use a drink, she said with a grin. I laughed, grateful for her unwavering friendship. You know me too well. We settled onto the couch, the wine flowing and our conversation easy and light. Zoe's presence was a balm, her laughter infectious and comforting. So, what's next for you? She asked, her eyes curious and supportive. I leaned back, considering her question. I don't know, I admitted. But for the first time, I'm okay with that. I'm just going to take it one day at a time. Zoe nodded, her expression thoughtful. Sounds like a plan. As the evening wore on, I found myself reflecting on the journey I'd been through. The betrayal, the loss, the confrontation, it had all been painful, but it had also led me to this moment. A moment where I felt stronger, more self-assured, and ready to embrace whatever came next. The resolution wasn't perfect. There were still loose ends and unanswered questions. Caleb and Marissa were out of my life, but their shadows lingered, reminders of the past that had shaped me. Yet I knew that I was no longer defined by them. I was free to carve my own path, to find my own happiness. As I lay in bed that night, the city lights casting a gentle glow through the window, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had faced my fears, confronted the people who had hurt me, and emerged on the other side stronger for it. And as I drifted off to sleep, a lingering thought crossed my mind, a subtle twist to the resolution. What if Caleb and Marissa's downfall was just the beginning? What if their actions had set off a chain of events that would ripple through their lives, forcing them to confront their own demons? The thought was both unsettling and oddly satisfying, a reminder that justice and karma had their own way of unfolding. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it with courage and resilience. In the end, my journey had been about more than revenge or justice. It had been about finding myself, about learning to value my own needs and desires. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, possibility, and the promise of a brighter future.
The crystal vase shattered against the wall, inches from my head. I ducked, my heart pounding as I stared at James, his face contorted with rage. 35 years, Maggie. 35 goddamn years, and this is how you repay me, he roared, his fists clenched at his sides. I straightened, squaring my shoulders. Repay you? For what, James? The constant criticism? The manipulation? The way you've treated our children? His eyes narrowed. I gave you everything. A beautiful home, financial security. Everything except respect, I cut in, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Everything except love. James lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You ungrateful. Let go of me, I hissed, wrenching away from his grip. This is exactly why I'm leaving. I won't live like this anymore. The doorbell rang, startling us both. James stepped back, running a hand through his silver hair. That'll be Sarah, I said, moving towards the door. She's here to help me pack. James's face paled. You told the kids? I nodded, my hand on the doorknob. They deserve to know the truth. Our daughter's voice called from outside. Mom? Dad? Everything okay in there? I opened the door, forcing a smile. Hi, sweetheart, come on in. Sarah stepped inside, her lawyer's eyes quickly assessing the scene. The broken vase, James's flushed face, my trembling hands. What's going on? She demanded, her gaze darting between us. James cleared his throat. Your mother has decided to abandon her family. After all these years, she's walking out on us. I felt a surge of anger. Don't you dare twist this, James. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm saving myself. Sarah's eyes widened. Mom? Is this true? You're leaving? I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. I'm sorry, honey. I should have done this years ago. James scoffed. You're being ridiculous, Maggie. Where will you go? How will you support yourself? I'll figure it out, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Anything's better than staying here. Sarah stepped between us. Okay, let's all take a breath. Mom, why don't we go upstairs and pack your things? Dad, maybe you should give us some space. James's face darkened. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. Fine, I snapped. We'll go upstairs. Come on, Sarah. As we climbed the stairs, I heard James muttering, "She'll be back. She's got nowhere else to go." In our bedroom, soon to be just his, I began throwing clothes into a suitcase. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her face a mix of concern and confusion. Mom, are you sure about this? It's so sudden. I paused, a handful of blouses clutched to my chest. It might seem sudden to you, honey, but I've been thinking about this for a long time. Your father and we haven't been happy for years. Sarah's brow furrowed. But why now? What changed? I sighed, sitting beside her. I did. I finally realized I deserve better, and so do you and Daniel. Daniel doesn't know yet, does he? I shook my head. I'll call him once I'm settled. I didn't want to burden him while he's in the middle of his research project. Sarah nodded, then stood up. Okay, let's get you packed. Where are you planning to stay? I've got a room at the Sunset Inn for now. I'll figure out something more permanent soon. As we finished packing, a crash echoed from downstairs. We rushed to the landing to see James in the foyer, a broken picture frame at his feet. Our wedding photo lay among the shattered glass. You want out? He shouted up at me. Fine, but don't think you're taking half of what's mine. I made this family and I can break it just as easily. I felt Sarah stiffen beside me. In that moment, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful battle. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I was finally taking control of my life, and no matter what James threw at me, I wasn't going back. The Sunset Inn's floral wallpaper seemed to close in on me as I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone clutched in my trembling hand. I'd been staring at Daniel's number for what felt like hours, trying to summon the courage to call my son. A knock at the door made me jump. Mom? It's me, Sarah's voice called. I let out a relieved sigh. Come in, honey. Sarah entered, her eyes scanning the small room. How are you holding up? I'm managing, I said, attempting a smile. I was just about to call Daniel. She sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on my arm. Want me to do it? I shook my head. No, I need to do this myself. Taking a deep breath, I dialed. Daniel answered on the third ring. Mom, is everything okay? His concerned tone brought tears to my eyes. Daniel, sweetheart, there's something I need to tell you. As I explained the situation, I could hear the shock in his voice. But Mom, why now, after all these years? It's been a long time coming, honey. Your father, he's not the man you think he is. There was a long pause. What do you mean? I glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Daniel, your father has been controlling and manipulative for years. He's pushed all of us to be what he wanted, not who we are. That's not true, Daniel protested. Dad always supported my environmental work. I felt a pang of guilt. Honey, do you remember when you wanted to study marine biology? Your father convinced you to focus on something more practical instead. He was just looking out for my future, Daniel argued, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Was he? I pressed. Or was he molding you into what he thought you should be? Before Daniel could respond, my phone beeped with an incoming call. It was James. Daniel, I have to go. Your father's calling. We'll talk more soon, okay? I switched calls, my heart racing. James? His voice was cold. I hope you're happy, Maggie. Daniel just texted me asking about some ridiculous accusations you've made. They're not accusations, James. They're the truth. He scoffed. The truth? You want to talk about truth? How about the truth of how you're going to survive without me? You haven't worked in decades. You have no skills, no prospects. His words stung, but I refused to let him see how much. I'll manage. Will you? He sneered. And what about the kids? You think they'll choose you over the comfort and security I provide? Our children aren't for sale, James, I snapped. We'll see about that, he replied ominously before hanging up. I turned to Sarah, my hands shaking. He's going to try to turn them against me. Sarah's jaw clenched. He can try, but we won't let him succeed. Just then, my phone chimed with a text from Daniel. Dad says you're having some kind of breakdown. Is that true? I showed Sarah the message, feeling a wave of despair. See, it's already starting. Sarah stood up, determination in her eyes. Mom, we need to fight back. We can't let Dad control the narrative. But how? I asked, feeling overwhelmed. We tell the truth, all of it. No more protecting Dad's image. She paused, her expression softening. Do you remember when I was 10 and Dad pushed me into that junior debate competition? I nodded, the memory flooding back. You were so nervous you didn't want to do it. But Dad insisted, said it would look good on college applications. Sarah's voice hardened. I cried myself to sleep for weeks, but he wouldn't listen. I should have stood up for you more, I said, regret washing over me. Sarah shook her head. That's not the point, Mom. The point is, we've all been living under Dad's thumb for too long. It's time to break free. As if on cue, my phone rang again. It was Daniel. Mom, his voice was hesitant. I've been thinking about what you said, about marine biology. I held my breath, waiting. I think you might be right, about Dad, I mean. He paused. Can we talk more? In person? Relief flooded through me. Of course, sweetheart. Why don't you come over to the inn? As I hung up, I looked at Sarah, a mix of hope and determination rising within me. Your brother's coming, I think. I think he's starting to see the truth. Sarah squeezed my hand. That's great, Mom. But remember, this is just the beginning. Dad won't give up without a fight. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of strength igniting within me. James had controlled our family for too long. It was time to reclaim our lives, no matter the cost. The tension in the small motel room was palpable as Daniel paced back and forth, his brow furrowed in confusion and disbelief. Sarah sat beside me on the bed, her hand resting supportively on my arm. I just can't believe it, Daniel muttered, running his fingers through his hair. All these years, and I never saw it. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. There's more, Daniel. So much more that you both need to know about your father. Sarah leaned in, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. What is it, Mom? What else has he done? I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. It started small, criticisms about my appearance, my cooking, the way I raised you both. But over time it became more. Daniel stopped pacing, his eyes fixed on me. More how? He controlled everything, our finances, our social life, even my relationships with my own family. My voice trembled. He isolated me, made me dependent on him. And when I tried to stand up for myself, he'd threatened to take you both away. Sarah's grip on my arm tightened. Mom, that's emotional abuse. Why didn't you tell us? I was ashamed, I admitted, tears welling in my eyes, and scared. Your father can be vindictive when he doesn't get his way. Daniel slumped into a chair, his face pale. I remember the night before my college interviews. Dad stayed up with me, drilling me on what to say, how to act. I thought he was being supportive, but now... He was controlling you, Sarah finished, her voice hard. I nodded. He did the same with both of you. Remember your debate competitions, Sarah? And Daniel, the way he pushed you away from marine biology? They exchanged glances, years of manipulation suddenly coming into focus. There's something else, I said, my heart racing. Something I've never told anyone. Sarah and Daniel leaned in, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. 10 years ago, I found out your father was having an affair. The words tumbled out, a weight lifting from my chest. When I confronted him, he threatened to leave me with nothing if I ever breathed a word of it to anyone. The room fell silent. Then suddenly Daniel stood up, his fists clenched. I'll kill him, he growled. Sarah jumped up, though placing a restraining hand on her brother's arm. No, Daniel, we can't stoop to his level. We need to be smarter than that. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from James. I know you're with the kids. Stop poisoning them against me, or you'll regret it. I showed them the message, my hands shaking. Sarah's eyes narrowed. That's it. We're filing for a restraining order first thing tomorrow. Daniel nodded in agreement. And I'm canceling my research trip. I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone, Mom. Tears of gratitude streamed down my face. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you both from him sooner. Sarah hugged me tightly. You're protecting us now, Mom. That's what matters. As we sat there, united in our newfound understanding, a knock at the door made us all jump. Maggie? James's voice called from the other side. I know you're in there. Open up, or I'll have the manager let me in. Daniel moved towards the door, his face set in determination, but Sarah held him back. Wait, she whispered, pulling out her phone. I'm recording this. We need evidence of his behavior. I took a deep breath, years of fear and submission battling with my newfound courage. Then, squaring my shoulders, I walked to the door. "Go away, James," I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. "We have nothing to say to you." "Don't you dare shut me out," he roared, pounding on the door. "I made you, Maggie. You're nothing without me." As James continued his tirade, Sarah filmed while Daniel called the police. In that moment, watching my children stand up to their father's abuse, I felt a surge of pride and determination. This was just the beginning of our fight, but for the first time in decades, I wasn't facing it alone. Whatever James threw at us next, we would face it together, as a family. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom I'd managed to rent with Sarah's help. It had been 2 weeks since the incident at the motel, and life had settled into an uneasy calm. I sipped my coffee, trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in my stomach. The phone rang, startling me. It was Daniel. "Mom, have you seen the news?" His voice was tight with concern. I fumbled for the remote, turning on the TV. My heart dropped as I saw James's face plastered across the screen, his usually impeccable appearance disheveled. The news anchor's voice filled the room. Local business mogul James Blackwell has been accused of embezzlement and fraud. Sources say the allegations involve millions of dollars. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Mom, are you okay?" Daniel's voice seemed far away. I need to call you back," I managed, ending the call. My mind raced. James, a criminal? It seemed impossible, yet a part of me wasn't surprised. His obsession with success, his need for control, had it all led to this? The phone rang again, Sarah this time. "Mom, I'm on my way over. Don't talk to anyone, especially not Dad or the press." I nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me. "Okay," I mumbled. As I waited for Sarah, my emotions warred within me. Part of me felt a vindictive satisfaction. James was finally facing consequences for his actions. But another part, the part that had loved him for over 3 decades, ached with a confusing mix of concern and guilt. Sarah burst through the door, her lawyer mode in full swing. "Mom, we need to talk strategy. Dad's lawyers might try to implicate you in this mess." I stared at her, stunned. "Me? But I didn't know anything about his business dealings." She sighed, sitting beside me. "I know, Mom. But you were his wife for 35 years. They might argue you benefited from his illegal activities." The room seemed to spin. "This can't be happening," I whispered. Just then my phone buzzed with a text. It was James. "I need to see you. Please, I can explain everything." I showed Sarah the message, my hand trembling. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't respond. In fact, let me have your phone. We need to protect you from any potential legal implications." As I handed over my phone, a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Despite everything, a small part of me wanted to hear James out, to understand how we'd ended up here. "Sarah," I said hesitantly, what if we're wrong about this? What if James is innocent?" She looked at me, her expression a mix of sympathy and frustration. "Mom, after everything he's done, how can you still defend him?" I shook my head, tears welling up. "I'm not defending him. I need to know the truth." Sarah's phone rang. It was Daniel. She put him on speaker. "I've been doing some digging," he said, his voice tense. "Dad's company has been in financial trouble for years. He's been cooking the books, taking out massive loans. It's bad, really bad." I felt the blood drain from my face. Our comfortable life, the vacations, the gifts, had it all been built on lies? Sarah squeezed my hand. "Mom, I know this is hard, but we need to protect you. I think we should consider talking to the authorities. Tell them everything we know about Dad's behavior, his control over the family finances." I stared at her, the full weight of the situation crashing down on me. This wasn't just about leaving James anymore. This was about potentially sending him to prison. "I need some time to think," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As Sarah and Daniel continued to discuss the situation, I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. The life I'd known for decades was crumbling around me. James's actions had put not just himself, but our entire family at risk. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could retreat, try to distance myself from the scandal, or I could step forward, tell my story, and finally break free from James's control once and for all. Taking a deep breath, I turned back to my children. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Let's talk to the authorities. It's time the truth came out. All of it." The fluorescent lights of the police station buzzed overhead as I sat, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting for the detective to return. Sarah sat beside me, her lawyer persona firmly in place, while Daniel paced nervously near the door. "Mrs. Blackwell?" Detective Ramirez appeared, a thick file in her hands. "We have some questions about your husband's financial activities." I nodded, my throat dry. "I'll do my best to answer." As the detective began her questioning, I felt like I was walking through a minefield of my past. Each answer seemed to reveal more about the life I'd been blind to for so long. "Mrs. Blackwell, were you aware of any offshore accounts your husband might have had?" I shook my head, feeling a mix of shame and anger. "No, James handled all our finances." Sarah squeezed my hand supportively as the detective continued. "And what about his business trips? Did you ever accompany him?" A memory surfaced, sharp and painful. "Once, to the Cayman Islands. He said it was a vacation, but—" I trailed off, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. Detective Ramirez leaned forward. "But what, Mrs. Blackwell? He spent most of the time in meetings. I thought it was just work, but now—" The questioning continued for what felt like hours. With each revelation, I felt the foundations of my life crumbling further. As we prepared to leave, Detective Ramirez pulled Sarah aside. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Sarah's face grew increasingly pale. In the car ride home, an oppressive silence filled the air. Finally, Daniel spoke up from the back seat. "Mom, Sarah, what aren't you telling me?" Sarah's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "The detective shared some information with me. It's bad, Daniel." My heart raced. "What is it, Sarah? Please, just tell us." She took a deep breath. "They found evidence that Dad's been laundering money for some very dangerous people, and there's more." I braced myself, unsure if I could handle any more revelations. "They think he might have been involved in some kind of human trafficking operation." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "No," I whispered. "That's impossible. James would never." But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. The late-night phone calls, the mysterious business associates, the unexplained cash, it all started to make a horrifying kind of sense. Daniel's voice cracked with emotion. "How could we not have known?" We pulled up to my apartment, all of us too shaken to speak. As we entered, Sarah's phone rang, her face paled as she answered. "Yes, this is Sarah Blackwell." "What? When?" She listened intently, her expression growing more alarmed by the second. As she hung up, she turned to us, her voice barely above a whisper. "That was Dad's lawyer. He's gone. Disappeared. They think he might have fled the country." The room spun around me. James gone? After everything, he'd just left? Suddenly, a fierce anger rose within me, burning away the shock and confusion. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in years. "He doesn't get to run away from this. From us." Sarah and Daniel looked at me, surprised by my vehemence. "Mom," Daniel asked hesitantly. I stood up, a new determination filling me. "We're going to find him. We're going to uncover every secret, every lie, and we're going to make sure he faces the consequences of what he's done." Sarah nodded slowly. "But Mom, if what the police suspect is true, we could be putting ourselves in danger." I met her gaze steadily. "We've been in danger for years, Sarah. We just didn't know it. It's time we took control of our own lives." As my children looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern, I felt a shift within myself. The scared, submissive wife I'd been for so long was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to fight not just for herself, but for the truth and justice her family deserved. "So," I said, looking from Sarah to Daniel, "where do we start?" The rhythmic tapping of Sarah's heels echoed through the empty office building as we made our way to James's private suite. My heart raced, a mix of anticipation and dread coursing through my veins. We'd traced James to his old office, a place I once thought I knew so well. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Daniel whispered, his eyes darting nervously. I nodded, steeling myself. "We need answers, and they're in there." Sarah used her old keycard, a relic from her internship days, to unlock the door. As we stepped inside, the familiar scent of James's cologne hit me like a punch to the gut. "Let's make this quick," Sarah said, moving towards the computer. "I'll check his files, Daniel. You look through the drawers. Mom, keep watch." I stood by the door, my mind reeling. How had we come to this? Breaking into my husband's office, searching for evidence of his crimes. Suddenly, Daniel's sharp intake of breath caught my attention. "Mom, Sarah, you need to see this." We hurried over. In his hands was a thick folder, labeled simply, Family. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Inside were detailed dossiers on each of us. Financial records, medical histories, even surveillance photos. My blood ran cold as I realized the extent of James's obsession with control. "He's been watching us for years," Sarah whispered, her face pale. "Even after you left, Mom." Before I could respond, the computer beeped. Sarah had cracked James's password. "Oh my God," she breathed, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the files. "It's all here. The money laundering, the offshore accounts, the trafficking operation." I felt sick. How could he do this? How could we not have known? Daniel placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We couldn't have known, Mom. He fooled everyone." Suddenly, a noise from the hallway made us freeze. Footsteps getting closer. "Quick, hide!" Sarah hissed, shoving the folder into her bag and closing the computer. We ducked behind a large filing cabinet just as the door opened. My heart nearly stopped as James walked in, looking haggard and desperate. He moved quickly to his desk, rifling through drawers and muttering to himself, "It has to be here. I need those papers." I watched, a storm of emotions raging within me. This man, whom I'd loved for so long, was now a stranger, a criminal on the run. James slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. "Damn it!" In that moment, something inside me snapped. I couldn't hide anymore. Ignoring Sarah and Daniel's frantic whispers, I stepped out from our hiding place. "Looking for something, James?" He whirled around, his face a mask of shock and anger. "Maggie, what the hell are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Shouldn't you be halfway across the world by now?" His eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. I had no choice, if you knew what I was up against." "Then explain it to me, James," I demanded, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. "Explain how you could betray our family, how you could be involved in human trafficking." He paled. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter," I cut him off. "What matters is that it stops now. Turn yourself in, James. It's over." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I once loved, vulnerable, conflicted, but then his face hardened. "I'm sorry, Maggie, but I can't do that." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a gun. Sarah and Daniel burst from their hiding place. "Dad, no!" James's hand shook as he pointed the gun at us. "I never wanted it to come to this, but I can't go to prison. I won't." Time seemed to slow as I stared down the barrel of the gun. In that moment, I saw our entire life together flash before my eyes, the good times and the bad, the love and the lies. "James," I said softly, taking a step forward, "please, don't do this. Think of our children." His resolve wavered, the gun lowering slightly, but before he could respond, the door burst open. Detective Ramirez and a team of officers flooded in. "James Blackwell, put the gun down. You're under arrest." As the chaos erupted around us, I locked eyes with James one last time. In his gaze, I saw a mixture of defeat, regret, and something else, a silent plea for forgiveness. But as the officers handcuffed him and led him away, I knew that some things could never be forgiven. Our family would never be the same, but at least now we could begin to heal. The courtroom buzzed with tension as I sat on the hard wooden bench, Sarah and Daniel flanking me like protective sentinels. James's trial had been dominating the news for weeks, but nothing could have prepared me for the moment when the prosecutor stood up to deliver his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice resonating through the packed room, "what you're about to hear will shock you. James Blackwell, respected businessman and family man, is nothing more than a criminal mastermind." As he detailed James's crimes, the money laundering, the human trafficking, the years of deception, I felt the eyes of the courtroom upon me. Whispers rippled through the crowd. How could she not have known? What kind of wife was she? I gripped Sarah's hand tightly, fighting back tears. This was our lives being laid bare, our family's dirty laundry aired for all to see. When it was time for the defense to speak, James's lawyer painted a picture of a man driven to desperation by financial troubles, a loving father who only wanted to provide for his family. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. As the trial progressed, witness after witness took the stand. Business associates, bank managers, even some of the trafficking victims. Each testimony was another nail in James's coffin, another blow to our family's reputation. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. The prosecution calls Margaret Blackwell to the stand. On shaky legs, I made my way to the witness box. As I was sworn in, I caught James's eye. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, vulnerable, pleading. But then his mask of cool indifference slipped back into place. The prosecutor's questions were relentless. "Mrs. Blackwell, were you aware of your husband's illegal activities?" "No," I said firmly. "I had no idea. And yet you lived a life of luxury, expensive vacations, designer clothes. How did you think that was possible on your husband's reported income?" I felt a surge of anger. I trusted my husband. I believed in him. I never questioned. "Never questioned," the prosecutor interrupted, "or never wanted to know the truth." Before I could respond, James's lawyer objected, and the judge called for a recess. As I stepped down from the stand, I felt drained, exposed. Sarah met me outside the courtroom. "Mom, there's something you need to see." She led me to a small conference room where Daniel was waiting, his face grim. On the table was a stack of documents. "What is this?" I asked, my heart sinking. Daniel took a deep breath. "We found these in Dad's old office. They're transfer records to an account in your name." My world tilted on its axis. "What? No, that's impossible. I never—" Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Mom, it looks like Dad was funneling money through an account he set up in your name. If this comes out in court, the implications hit me like a tidal wave. I could be implicated in James's crimes. Everything I'd built since leaving him, my independence, my new life, could come crashing down." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I can make this all go away. Meet me at the old boathouse. Come alone. Jay." I showed the message to Sarah and Daniel, my mind racing. This could be a trap, but it could also be our only chance to clear my name. "Mom, you can't seriously be considering this," Sarah protested. I looked at my children, seeing the fear and concern in their eyes. But beneath that, I saw strength, my strength, reflected back at me. "I have to," I said, my resolve hardening. "This ends now, one way or another." As I walked out of the courthouse, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination, I knew I was walking into the most dangerous confrontation of my life. But for the first time in years, I felt truly in control. James had taken so much from us, our security, our trust, our peace of mind, but he wouldn't take our future. I would make sure of that, whatever the cost. The warm summer breeze rustled through the leaves as I stood on the porch of our new family home, watching Sarah and Daniel chatting animatedly in the garden. 3 years had passed since that fateful day at the boathouse, and the world had shifted on its axis more times than I could count. I closed my eyes, remembering the confrontation with James. His desperate pleas, his attempts to manipulate me one last time. But I wasn't the same woman he had controlled for decades. I had stood my ground, recorded every word, and walked away with the evidence that not only cleared my name, but ensured James would face the full consequences of his actions. The trial that followed was a media circus, but we weathered it together. Sarah's legal expertise, Daniel's unwavering support, and my newfound strength formed an unbreakable bond. We testified, we cried, we held each other up, and in the end, justice prevailed. James was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The man I had once loved, feared, and hated in equal measure was now just a shadow in our past. "Mom?" Sarah's voice pulled me from my reverie. "Are you okay?" I smiled, genuinely and without reservation. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. I'm happy." She wrapped an arm around me, and we watched as Daniel tended to the small vegetable garden he'd insisted on planting. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Sarah mused. "It is," I agreed. "But we did it together." The sound of a car pulling up caught our attention. It was Thomas, Sarah's fiancé, arriving for our weekly family dinner. As he got out of the car, I saw the gentle way Sarah's face lit up. It warmed my heart to see her in a healthy, loving relationship, something I had feared might never happen after the trauma we'd endured. Daniel jogged over to greet Thomas, soil still clinging to his hands. My environmentalist son had found his true calling, working to protect the very ecosystems his father had once exploited. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. As we gathered around the dinner table, laughter and conversation flowing freely, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This was my revenge, not in destroying James, but in rebuilding what he had tried to tear down. Our family, stronger and more united than ever. "I have an announcement," Daniel said suddenly, a nervous smile playing on his lips. "I've been offered a position leading a major conservation project in Costa Rica." A chorus of congratulations erupted around the table. As Daniel explained the details of his new role, his eyes shining with excitement, I felt a bittersweet pang. My baby boy was spreading his wings, ready to fly. "That's wonderful news, honey," I said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. "Your father." I paused, the words catching in my throat. It was still hard sometimes to reconcile the man James had been with the criminal he'd become. "Your father would be proud," I finished softly, "not of what he did, but of who you've become in spite of it." Sarah raised her glass, to Daniel, and to new beginnings. As we clinked glasses, I looked around at the faces of my children, no longer children, but strong, compassionate adults who had weathered the storm alongside me. I thought of the long journey we'd taken, the pain we'd endured, and the love that had seen us through. "To new beginnings," I echoed, "and to the family we've built." Later that night, as I stood in my bedroom, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was older, yes, with lines etched by both laughter and tears, but her eyes were clear, unburdened by the weight of secrets and fear. I thought of James, sitting in his prison cell, and felt nothing. No anger, no regret, no longing for what might have been. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. As I turned out the light and settled into bed, I smiled to myself. Tomorrow was a new day, full of possibilities, and for the first time in my life, I was truly, completely free. The journal fell from my hands, its pages fluttering to the floor like the shattered pieces of my heart. I couldn't believe what I'd just read. My husband Ethan, the man I'd loved and supported for over a decade, had been plotting to sabotage my career. "Anne? Are you home?" Ethan's voice echoed from downstairs, jolting me back to reality. I scrambled to gather the loose pages, shoving them back into the leather-bound book. My hands trembled as I tucked it away in my bedside drawer. Taking a deep breath, I called out, "Up here, honey!" Footsteps approached, and Ethan appeared in the doorway, his familiar scent of coffee and cologne filling the room. "Hey, I thought we could grab dinner tonight, that new Italian place downtown." I forced a smile, my mind reeling from what I'd discovered. "Sure, sounds great. Just give me a minute to freshen up." As I turned to the mirror, I caught a glimpse of Ethan's reflection. His eyes, once filled with warmth and admiration, now held a coldness that sent a chill down my spine. How long had he been harboring these feelings? "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone casual but laced with something I couldn't quite place. "Fine," I lied, applying a fresh coat of lipstick. "Just a long day at work. The new collection is really taking off." Ethan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's great, honey. You're really making waves in the fashion world." I searched his face for any hint of the resentment I'd read about, but his expression remained neutral. As we headed out, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Leah. "How are things, sweetie? Still on for lunch tomorrow?" I typed a quick reply, grateful for her constant support. If only she knew the turmoil brewing beneath the surface of my seemingly perfect life. At the restaurant, Ethan and I sat across from each other, an invisible chasm stretching between us. The waiter arrived, breaking the tension momentarily. "I'll have the chicken parmesan," Ethan said, barely glancing at the menu. "And for the lady?" the waiter asked, turning to me. "The grilled salmon, please," I replied, my appetite all but gone. As we waited for our food, Ethan leaned back, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. "So how's the writing going?" I asked, desperate to fill the silence. His gaze snapped back to me, a flicker of something dark passing across his face. "It's fine. Nothing as exciting as your fashion empire, of course." The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable now. I felt a surge of anger rising within me. How dare he resent my success when I'd done nothing but support his dreams? "Ethan, is something wrong?" I pressed, unable to contain myself any longer. "You've been different lately." He shrugged, his expression carefully neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about, Anne. Everything's fine." Before I could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Anne, what a surprise!" I turned to see Blake, my former colleague, approaching our table. His warm smile was a stark contrast to the icy atmosphere between Ethan and me. "Blake, it's great to see you," I said, genuinely happy for the interruption. Ethan's eyes narrowed as Blake and I chatted briefly about work. When Blake finally bid us goodbye, promising to catch up soon, I could feel the tension radiating off Ethan in waves. "Old friend?" he asked, his voice tight. "Just a colleague from my early days in the industry," I explained, suddenly feeling defensive. The rest of the meal passed in strained silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. As we drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Back in our bedroom, I watched Ethan as he got ready for bed, searching for any sign of the man I'd fallen in love with. But all I saw was a stranger, his face a mask of indifference. As I lay awake that night, Ethan's soft snores beside me, I made a decision. I would confront him, demand answers about what I'd read in that journal. But first, I needed a plan. Tomorrow I'd call Blake. If anyone could help me navigate this minefield, it was him. Little did I know that decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my stomach, the weight of Ethan's journal still heavy on my mind. As I got ready for work, I could hear him moving around downstairs, the silence between us stretching like a chasm. "I'm heading out," I called, grabbing my keys. No response. Sighing, I made my way to the kitchen. Ethan sat at the table, hunched over his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. He barely glanced up as I entered. "Ethan, did you hear me? I said I'm leaving." He grunted, eyes still fixed on the screen. "Have a good day." The coldness in his voice sent a chill through me. This wasn't the man I married. As I drove to work, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing him, piece by piece. At the office, I threw myself into my work, desperate for a distraction. But even as I reviewed designs and approved marketing plans, my mind kept drifting back to Ethan's journal. My phone buzzed, startling me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Marion, Ethan's mother. "Anne, dear, dropping by for dinner tonight. See you at 7. I groaned inwardly. Marion's visits were always a source of tension, her critical eyes finding fault in everything from my cooking to my career choices. As I drove home that evening, dread settled in my stomach. I walked in to find Ethan and Marion already in the living room, their hushed conversation stopping abruptly as I entered. "Anne, darling." Marion's voice dripped with false sweetness. "How lovely to see you. I hope you don't mind, I brought a casserole. I know how busy you are with your little fashion projects." I forced a smile. "Thank you, Marion. That's very thoughtful." Ethan remained silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. The tension in the room was palpable. As we sat down to eat, Marion launched into her usual litany of thinly veiled criticisms. "Anne, dear, don't you think it's time you focused more on your home life? Ethan tells me you're hardly ever here anymore." I felt a surge of anger. "My career is important to me, Marion, and Ethan has always been supportive of that." Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes flashing. "Have I? Maybe I'm tired of playing second fiddle to your ambitions." The bitterness in his voice shocked me into silence. Marion smiled, a triumphant glint in her eye. "Now, Ethan," she cooed, "I'm sure Anne doesn't mean to neglect you. She's just driven." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me," I muttered, fleeing to the kitchen. As I leaned against the counter, trying to catch my breath, I heard Marion's voice drift in from the dining room. "You see, Ethan, this is what happens when a woman puts her career before her family. It's not natural." I felt tears pricking at my eyes. How had things gotten so bad? When had Ethan started confiding in his mother instead of me? Suddenly, Ethan appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "Anne," he began, his voice low, "I think we need to talk." I steeled myself, ready for another confrontation. But before Ethan could continue, Marion's shrill voice interrupted. "Ethan, darling, come help me with my coat. I think it's time I headed home." Ethan hesitated, looking torn. Then, without a word, he turned and left the kitchen. I stood there, alone and shaken, listening to the murmur of their voices in the hallway. When I heard the front door close, I waited for Ethan to return, to finish what he'd started to say. But he didn't come back. Instead, I heard his footsteps on the stairs, followed by the soft click of our bedroom door closing. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of our disastrous dinner, I felt more alone than ever. The man I loved was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I mechanically cleared the table, my resolve hardened. Tomorrow, I decided, I would call Blake. I needed an ally, someone to help me make sense of the mess my life had become. Little did I know, That decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. Ethan had left early, avoiding another awkward encounter. I sighed, rubbing my temples, the weight of our crumbling marriage pressed down on me like a physical force. My phone buzzed. It was my mother, Leah. "Sweetie, don't forget our lunch date today. I've got a surprise for you." Despite everything, I smiled. Mom always knew how to lift my spirits. At the quaint cafe where we often met, I spotted her immediately. Her warm smile was a stark contrast to Marian's cold smirk from the night before. "Anne, darling." She enveloped me in a hug. "You look exhausted. Is everything all right?" I hesitated, then the words tumbled out. I told her everything. The journal, Ethan's resentment, Marian's visit. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Mom listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "Oh, honey," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Have you talked to Ethan about it?" I shook my head. "I don't know how. He's so distant, Mom. It's like he's a different person." She nodded thoughtfully. "Marriage isn't easy, Anne, but communication is key. You need to tell him how you feel." "I know," I sighed. "But what if it's too late?" Mom's eyes softened. "It's never too late to fight for what you love. Now, enough heavy talk. I have something to cheer you up." She pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. Inside was a weekend pass to a luxury spa retreat. "Mom, this is too much," I protested. She waved me off. "Nonsense. You need this, Anne. Take some time for yourself. Clear your head." As I hugged her goodbye, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe a weekend away was exactly what I needed. Back at home, I found Ethan in his study, hunched over his laptop. "Ethan," I called soft, "can we talk?" He looked up, his eyes guarded. "What about?" I took a deep breath. "I was thinking, maybe we could use a break. Get away for the weekend?" His face hardened. "Some of us don't have the luxury of taking breaks, Anne. My writing doesn't pay for itself, you know." The bitterness in his voice stung. "I just thought—" "You thought what?" he snapped. "That you could wave your magic wand and fix everything? Not everything revolves around you and your perfect life, Anne." I recoiled as if he'd slapped me. "Ethan, please, I'm trying here. What happened to us?" For a moment, his eyes softened. Then the wall slammed back down. "Nothing happened. This is who we are now. Deal with it." He turned back to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. I fled the room, my heart pounding. In our bedroom, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed Blake's number. "Anne?" His voice was warm, concerned. "Is everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Blake, I need your help. Can we meet?" There was a pause. "Of course. Tomorrow morning, at the office." "Perfect, thank you." As I hung up, guilt gnawed at me. Was I betraying Ethan by confiding in Blake? But then I remembered Ethan's cold eyes, his cutting words. No, I decided. I needed an ally, someone who could help me make sense of this mess. I glanced at the spa passes on the nightstand. Maybe a weekend alone was exactly what I needed. Time to think, to plan my next move. As I packed my bag, I heard Ethan's heavy footsteps on the stairs. My heart raced. Would he apologize? Try to make amends? But he passed our room without a word, the guest room door slamming shut behind him. In that moment, I made a decision. This weekend wasn't just about relaxation. It was about reclaiming my life, my happiness. And when I returned, things would change. One way or another, I would confront Ethan and get to the bottom of his behavior. Our marriage and my sanity depended on it. The spa weekend was supposed to be my refuge, a chance to clear my head and find some peace. Instead, it became the eye of the storm. I'd barely settled into my room when my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Where are you?" I hesitated before replying, "At a spa, Mom's treat. I needed some time to think." His response was immediate and biting. "Of course, run away when things get tough. Typical." I tossed the phone aside, fighting back tears. This wasn't the man I married. What had happened to us? Unable to relax, I found myself drawn to the laptop I'd brought along. Work always calmed me. But as I opened my email, a notification caught my eye. It was from our shared cloud storage, alerting me that Ethan had uploaded new files. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked, expecting to see drafts of his latest writing project. Instead, I found a folder labeled Anne's Downfall. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside were detailed plans, strategies to undermine my career. There were emails to my competitors offering insider information. fake reviews of my designs ready to be posted online, even a draft of a scathing exposé about my company's supposed unethical practices. I felt sick. This went beyond simple resentment. This was a calculated plan to destroy everything I'd worked for. With shaking hands, I called my mother. "Mom," I choked out when she answered. "I need you." An hour later, she burst into my room, concern etched on her face. I showed her what I'd found, watching as shock turned to anger in her eyes. "Oh, Anne," she breathed, I can't believe Ethan would do this." "What do I do, Mom?" I whispered, feeling lost. She squared her shoulders, a fierce look in her eyes. "You fight back. This isn't just about your marriage anymore. This is your life's work he's threatening." As we talked, a plan began to form, but I needed more information, someone who knew the industry inside and out. "I'm going to call Blake," I decided. "He might have insights we're missing." Mom nodded, squeezing my hand. "Good idea. I'll go get us some coffee. This might be a long night." As soon as she left, I dialed Blake's number. He answered on the second ring. "Anne, is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Blake, I need your help. It's about Ethan." There was a pause. "I was afraid of this," he said softly. "Anne, there's something you need to know." For the next 20 minutes, Blake filled me in on what he'd observed over the past few months. Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior at industry events, whispered conversations with my rivals, attempts to access confidential files. "I didn't want to believe it," Blake finished. "But Anne, I think Ethan's jealousy has turned into something dangerous." As I hung up, my mind was reeling. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture I didn't want to see. Mom returned, taking in my shell-shocked expression. "What is it, honey?" I looked up at her, suddenly feeling very small. "Mom, I think my marriage is over." She sat beside me, pulling me into a tight hug. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." As I cried in my mother's arms, a strange calm settled over me. The path ahead was clear now, painful as it might be. I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "I need to go home," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I have to confront Ethan before he can do any more damage." Mom nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and pride. "You're right, and I'll be right there with you, every step of the way." As we packed up my things, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. This wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It was about protecting my life's work, my passion, my future. Ethan had made his choice. Now it was time to make mine. The drive home from the spa was a blur of conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt, and fear battled for dominance as I gripped the steering wheel, my mother's supportive presence beside me, a small comfort in the storm of my thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Ethan's car. My heart raced. This was it. The moment of truth. "Are you sure you want to do this now?" Mom asked, concern etching her features. I nodded, steeling myself. "I have to, Mom, before I lose my nerve." We entered the house, the air thick with tension. Ethan emerged from his study, surprise flickering across his face at the sight of my mother. "Anne? Leah? What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Ethan, now." His eyes narrowed, darting between us. "What's this about?" "I know everything," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "The journal, the sabotage plans, all of it." Ethan's face paled, then flushed with anger. "You went through my private things?" "Don't you dare turn this around on me," I snapped. "You've been plotting to destroy my career, my life's work. How could you?" He laughed bitterly. "Your life's work? What about mine, Anne? While you've been climbing the ladder of success, I've been stuck in your shadow, watching my dreams crumble." "That's not fair, Ethan," Mom interjected. "Anne has always supported your writing." "Stay out of this, Leah," Ethan snarled. "This is between me and my wife." "Don't speak to my mother that way," I warned, anger rising. "She's here because I need her support, because my own husband has turned into someone I don't even recognize anymore." Ethan's face contorted with rage. "Oh, poor Anne, always the victim, aren't you? Well, let me tell you something. I'm tired of playing second fiddle to your ambitions. I'm tired of being Anne's husband instead of Ethan Carter, writer." "So you decided to destroy everything I've worked for?" I asked, incredulous. "Ethan, I loved you. I supported you. How could you do this to me?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I married in his eyes. Regret, maybe even shame, but it was quickly replaced by cold determination. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "You don't understand what it's like, living in your shadow." "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "Talk to me, Ethan. We can work through this." He shook his head. It's too late for that, Anne. I've already set things in motion. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Ethan's smile was cruel. Check your email. I'm sure your little empire is crumbling as we speak. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone. My inbox was flooded with panicked messages from my team. Leaked designs, false accusations, stock prices plummeting. I looked up at Ethan, horror and disbelief warring within me. How could you? He shrugged, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. Now you know how it feels to watch your dreams die. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The last thread of hope I'd been clinging to disintegrated. Get out, I whispered. What? I said, get out, I shouted, tears streaming down my face. We're done, Ethan. I want a divorce. Shock registered on his face, quickly replaced by anger. Fine, he spat. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I collapsed into my mother's arms, sobs racking my body. It's okay, sweetheart, she soothed. You're strong. You'll get through this. As my tears subsided, a new determination took hold. Ethan might have landed the first blow, but this fight was far from over. I straightened up, wiping my eyes. Mom, I need to make some calls. It's time to salvage what's left of my company and my reputation. She nodded, pride shining in her eyes. That's my girl. What's your plan? I took a deep breath, my mind already racing with possibilities. First, I'm calling Blake. We need to do damage control. Then, I'm going to show Ethan and the world that I'm not so easily defeated. As I dialed Blake's number, I felt a strange sense of calm. The worst had happened, and I was still standing. Now, it was time to fight back. The next few days were a whirlwind of damage control and sleepless nights. Blake had been a godsend, working tirelessly alongside me to mitigate the fallout from Ethan's sabotage. But the strain was taking its toll, and I knew we needed a breakthrough. As I pored over financial reports in my home office, my phone buzzed. It was Marion. Anne, dear, we need to talk. Come to the house, now. My stomach churned. The last thing I needed was another confrontation with Ethan's mother. But something in her tone made me pause. This felt different. When I arrived at their family home, Marion ushered me in without a word. In the living room, I found Ethan slumped on the couch, his eyes red-rimmed and unfocused. What's going on? I demanded, my guard up. Marion sighed heavily. It's time for the truth to come out. All of it. Over the next hour, a story unfolded that shook me to my core. Ethan's resentment hadn't just been about my success. He'd been struggling with depression for years, self-medicating with alcohol and pills. His sabotage plans were born from a toxic mix of jealousy, desperation, and substance-induced paranoia. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Ethan finally looked at me, his face a mask of shame. I couldn't bear for you to see me as weak. You were so strong, so successful. I thought if I could just bring you down a notch, I'd feel like a man again. The anger I'd been holding on to began to crumble, replaced by a confusing mix of pity and betrayal. Ethan, we could have faced this together. Why didn't you trust me? Because I was a coward, he said, his voice breaking. And now I've destroyed everything. Marion stepped in, her usual sharpness softened by concern. Anne, I know my son has hurt you deeply, but he needs help. Professional help. Will you support him in getting it? I felt torn. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let Ethan face the consequences of his actions alone, but another part remembered the man I'd fallen in love with, the kind and supportive partner he'd once been. I'll help, I said finally, but not as your wife, Ethan. That chapter of our lives is over. He nodded, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. I understand, and Anne, I'm so sorry for everything. As I left the house, my mind was reeling. I'd come seeking confrontation and found, what? Closure? Understanding? It didn't erase the pain or the damage done, but it shifted something inside me. Back at home, I found my mother waiting, concern etched on her face. How did it go, sweetheart? I collapsed into her arms, the emotions of the day finally overwhelming me. Through tears, I recounted everything I'd learned. Oh, Anne, she sighed, stroking my hair. What a mess. What are you going to do now? I pulled away, wiping my eyes. I don't know, Mom. Part of me wants to help Ethan, but I can't forget what he did, and I still have a company to save. Just then, my phone rang. It was Blake. Anne, turn on the news. Now. With shaking hands, I grabbed the remote. The headline made my blood run cold. Fashion mogul Anne Carter accused of fraud and insider trading. No, I whispered, horror washing over me. This can't be happening. As the reporter detailed the allegations against me, I felt the ground crumbling beneath my feet. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built was on the verge of collapse. Anne? My mother's voice seemed far away. Anne, what do we do? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I could crumble under the weight of it all, or I could fight back with everything I had. Looking at my mother, then at Ethan's journal still sitting on my desk, I made my decision. We fight, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We fight with the truth. As I dialed Blake's number, I knew the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was on my side, and I was done being a victim. It was time to reclaim my life, my career, and my future. No matter what it took. The next morning, I woke to a media frenzy. My phone was buzzing incessantly with calls from reporters, business partners, and panicked employees. The accusations of fraud and insider trading had spread like wildfire, threatening to consume everything I'd built. I steeled myself and dialed Blake's number. We need to move fast, I said the moment he picked up. Can you meet me at the office in an hour? I'm already here, he replied, his voice tight with tension. Anne, it's bad. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. They're talking about forcing you out. My heart raced. Not if I can help it. I'm on my way. As I rushed to get ready, my mother appeared in the doorway. I'm coming with you, she said, her tone brooking no argument. You shouldn't face this alone. In the car, I briefed her on my plan. We need to prove that Ethan was behind this. His journal, the evidence of his sabotage. It's our only chance. Mom nodded, her face set with determination. We'll make them listen, sweetheart. The truth will come out. At the office, chaos reigned. Employees huddled in groups and whispering and casting worried glances my way. I held my head high as I strode to the conference room, where the board awaited. The moment I entered, I could feel the hostility. Richard, the head of the board, spoke first. Anne, in light of these serious allegations, we believe it's in the company's best interest for you to step down immediately. I took a deep breath. Before you make any decisions, there's something you need to see. I placed Ethan's journal on the table. My husband has been sabotaging this company out of jealousy and resentment. These fraud allegations are a result of his actions, not mine. Skeptical murmurs filled the room. I pressed on, detailing Ethan's plot, his struggles with depression and substance abuse, and his confession. As I spoke, I could see doubt creeping into their eyes. Just then, the door burst open. It was Ethan, looking wild-eyed and disheveled. Anne, stop! You can't do this! The room fell silent. I stood my ground facing him. It's over, Ethan. The truth is coming out, all of it. He lunged forward, grabbing for the journal. In the scuffle that followed, pages scattered across the floor. As board members rushed to intervene, I caught sight of Marion in the doorway, her face a mask of shock and dismay. Ethan, that's enough, she cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. He froze, turning to face his mother. Mom, I didn't mean for it to go this far. In that moment, something in Marion seemed to crumble. She stepped forward, addressing the board. My son needs help. He's been struggling for a long time, and I enabled him. I thought I was protecting him, but I was wrong. Anne is innocent. All of this, it's Ethan's doing, and mine for not stopping it sooner. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow wash over me. Richard cleared his throat. Anne, we owe you an apology and our full support in clearing your name. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. As security escorted Ethan out, he turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and despair. This isn't over, Anne. You'll pay for this. I swear. I'll make you regret the day you ever met me. As the door closed behind him, I felt a chill run down my spine. Despite the victory, I knew this was far from over. Ethan's threat hung in the air, a dark cloud over my moment of triumph. I turned to face the board, my resolve strengthening. Gentlemen, we have a lot of work to do. Our company's reputation is at stake, and I intend to fight for it with everything I have. As we began to strategize, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, a sinister promise of things to come. But I was done being a victim. Whatever he had planned, I would be ready. The war for my life, my career, and my future was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. Bring it on, Ethan, I thought. I'm ready for whatever you throw my way. The weeks following the board meeting were a whirlwind of legal battles, press conferences, and sleepless nights. But slowly, surely, the truth emerged. My name was cleared, the company's reputation salvaged, and Ethan's actions exposed. I thought it was over. I was wrong. It was a crisp autumn morning when I arrived at the office, ready to unveil our new collection. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out into chaos. Smoke billowed from the design studio. Alarms blared, and there, in the midst of it all, stood Ethan, a can of gasoline in one hand and a lighter in the other. "Ethan!" I gasped, my heart pounding. "What have you done?" His eyes, wild and unfocused, locked onto mine. "I told you I'd make you pay, Anne. This is your fault, all of it." As he ranted, I saw movement behind him. Blake was there, inching closer, a fire extinguisher in his hands. Our eyes met briefly, and I understood. I had to keep Ethan talking. "Ethan, please," I said, my voice steady despite my fear. "This isn't you. Think about what you're doing." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "This is exactly who I am, Anne, the man you made me. Well, if I can't have success, neither can you." As he raised the lighter, Blake struck. The extinguisher's spray hit Ethan full force, knocking him off balance. In seconds, security swarmed in, subduing him. As they led Ethan away, his screams echoing through the halls, I felt a strange mix of pity and relief wash over me. It was truly over now. In the aftermath, as we surveyed the damage, I was struck by a realization. Despite Ethan's best efforts, he hadn't destroyed everything. The core of my work, my vision, remained intact. "Anne," Blake said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "What do you want to do?" I looked around at my team, their faces smudged with soot but filled with determination. I thought of my mother, of Marion, of everyone who had supported me through this ordeal. "We rebuild," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "We take what's left and make it better than ever." The next few months were grueling, long days, longer nights, and countless challenges. But with each obstacle overcome, I felt myself growing stronger, more confident. Finally, the day of our revamped collection launch arrived. As I stood backstage, ready to present to the world, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Marion. "Anne," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I wanted to apologize for everything, and to thank you for not giving up on Ethan, even when I couldn't see what was happening." I hugged her tightly, feeling years of tension melt away. "We all did the best we could, Marion. Now, it's time to look forward." As I stepped onto the runway, the lights blinding and the crowd hushed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had weathered the storm, faced my darkest fears, and come out stronger. My voice rang out, clear and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you not just a new collection, but a testament to resilience, to the power of truth, and to the strength we find in adversity." The crowd erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. In that moment, I saw my journey flash before my eyes. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, but also the love, the support, and the unwavering belief in myself that had carried me through. As I took my final bow, I caught sight of my mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face, pride shining in her eyes, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. I had faced destruction, but created something beautiful from the ashes. And as I stood there, basking in the glow of my triumph, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in tearing others down, but in rising, phoenix-like, from the flames of adversity. This was my story, my victory, and I was ready for whatever came next. As the curtain fell, I smiled. The future was bright, and it was mine to shape. Let the next chapter begin.